Buttons are important. There we go. Thank you. So just to recap, no one signed up to speak, and I'd like this first hour to be more of a conversation. We are beginning a new year with new board members, and now that I've had a year to be the board president and understand a little better how information moves through the board and how it's supposed to and how we're doing things and so on, I think it's valuable for us to make some agreements about the norms we're going to choose to abide by as a body. So I have, to that end, done 2 different trainings that just happened to be available this month. One through ISBA that was very valuable, and one through the Community Foundation, which was more geared toward nonprofits, but it was a lot of good information for me as well. And so I've gotten some clarity on Robert's rules and how we've kind of been loosey-goosey doing the Robert's rules, and how that's fine because they're the guideline and a law. But I have some things I would like to adjust and have everyone agree to. So I think an outline would be useful. I think we need to talk about the role of the president versus the role of board members and what that entails. I think we need to talk about public expression and how we could do that better. I think we should talk about the flow of information and particularly in emergencies. And that was kind of my rough outline. Does anyone have anything as an overarching outline, bullet point that they'd like to add to that? David?
I think this is on now, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think at the last meeting we talked about communication to the public regarding email processes for us. There was communication within meetings of these types of meetings and how we're going to run that. And then those were, I think, 2 of the primary ones, but then also just more general external communication. I think we can probably bullet it into those few different areas: general communication with the public.
Okay, thank you. I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Stacia.
One more. I wondered if we could talk about minutes and kind of how it works communicating recommendations and revisions, and have that conversation about minutes. And the general process, not specifics.
I think that would be very useful. So I'm going to put with the public under public expression, and I'm going to put meetings and minutes together, okay? And unfortunately, because it's one job, there's no real way to segregate all of those different ideas perfectly into those 4, but I thought it would be useful to at least try. So if you look at the materials I included in the board packet from the training, if you look at ISBA's website, if you look at the model of board governance, which I'm going to make mine available to anyone. We ordered 2. Lawrence has one, I have one. If you would like one, we can order one. But it's nothing that's revolutionary. But the very first sentence of the 5th paragraph says a strong board president understands that he or she should be a conduit for the necessary information flow between the superintendent and the board. And that has been a real point of contention among the 7 of us. Rachel had her approach. I kind of tried the opposite approach just to see what would happen. And I think things are running fairly well now. I would like to get to a point where if people have concerns about information in the board packet, they would come to me. The reason being, not because I want to gatekeep Sean's time, not because I'm trying to control anything, but because when everyone is taking concerns to Sean, he has 7 people he has to answer to all the time. And he ends up spending a great deal of his time putting out fires among the 7 of us rather than doing what we've actually hired him to do. So, for example, if there was an item in the board packet that George had questions about, it would be ideal, in my opinion, if George would call me and say, hey, Amy, I noticed this item in the board packet. Do you have time to talk about it? And I'd say, sure. And we would have a conversation. I recognize that that's uncomfortable for some of you. Is there a middle ground between where that's uncomfortable and where I'd like to get us that would make those of you who are uncomfortable with that flow of information more comfortable? Daisha, any ideas about how we could communicate more effectively on that?
I think the way I view it is there's kind of 2 different times that information is needed. The first one is in regard to maybe a school board's role or input or working together as a board. And to me, that makes sense that if I have questions that I would like to ask about the board or things like that, that one option is to call you and talk to you about it, get your input and information. My view is if I have a question for Sean, I don't need to ask you for you to ask Sean. It's just an extra level of a middleman that makes things complicated and difficult. And so I think there's times and places for both.
I understand your point of view on that. I think Rachel has something to say.
Well, I was just going to comment. You mentioned that I had a different way of doing it, and for George and David's just kind of perspective on that. At the time, I was coming under a lot of criticism for not kind of sharing information. And so the approach that I took, I didn't feel that that was correct, but I was trying to process it, right? And so I dealt with that by writing weekly chair notes and hoping that perhaps that would help with some of the transition. And what I found is that some members of the board didn't even read the chair notes. And some really did and would follow up and ask questions. And I can't, the chair can't make anybody do anything, right? That's not their job to make somebody do something. It is true in every training that I have gone to over the course of 11 years. If we ask our superintendent to respond to all 7 of our questions about school matters, he will do it, because he understands that we're the board and he wants to please his board members. But we all have to understand that every decision, everything that we do has a consequence. And the consequence of that is that our superintendent is less able to do his job because he is trying to manage 7 different people and different expectations rather than having a unified board that allows him to manage the school and report to us as an entity. So I want to just pose that to everyone. If that's your choice, if you say, hey, I don't want to ask Amy, I don't want to have Amy going to Sean and asking, say, there's an issue out and I don't have the information I want to take a vote, I should go to my board chair and ask them to get that information for me. Instead, I want to go directly to the superintendent, and all 7 of us go directly to the superintendent. And say that only takes even 10 minutes of his time. That is an hour of his week that he loses. And I need you to know it never takes just 10 minutes of his time. So understand your decision has consequences if you won't coordinate our efforts.
I agree. Thank you very much. George?
Might I suggest a little bit of a compromise? Can we all agree to copy both the board president and the superintendent on those kinds of questions? So that way, you still get direct access to the superintendent, but if there's something that the board president can take care of without his input, she can do that and copy him. So that way you still have your access, but we also get to preserve some of his efficiency.
I think that's an excellent idea. The other thing I wanted to say, as I was reflecting about this over the last month, once we have the strategic plan and those goals in place, that will naturally take care of some of this. Because if someone comes to Sean and says, I'm hearing from half the community that we need to build a new school. Well, that's not in our strategic plan, so we're not going to focus on that right now. That can maybe be a goal 5 years from now or whatever. So that will naturally solve some of the problem. And I do like what you said about copying. And the nice thing about email is there's a record. My other concern, we're seeing in Indianapolis a lot of funding cuts and a lot of possible issues where we're going to have to make some really hard decisions. And doing those by email might not be ideal. So under those circumstances, there might be times when I would need to call the board and say, okay, we have a choice between making a cut here or making a cut there, to no fault of our own. Of course, we don't want to have all the money in the world, but we don't. So under those circumstances, I would like to know that if I were to call the 6 of you, that my call would be answered and that we could have a civil discussion about those issues, because we're potentially about to hit a really hard road. So, Rachel.
When you talk about cuts, I don't think that a phone call is really a good way to go.
That's good
I
information.
believe that if there is a cut decision in particular, that's a reason to call an emergency board meeting,
Okay.
and that we need to do that publicly, because cuts also have consequences, and we need to let our community see that conversation and be a part of that. So,
Okay.
I mean, I think if it comes to, and I've been in this situation where, when I first joined the board, the president at that time would call each member individually and say, hey, just want to understand if you have what you need, if you want anything else, not asking us to give a decision on something. And I think that can be a very helpful use of a single call, but decision-making has to be in a meeting, I think.
I agree with you. And thankfully, I've never been in a position where we've had to make a cut since I've been on the board. So that's good to know. Personnel issues, things like that, hiring decisions might be something where we would want to know ahead of time what we were looking at before we get to a meeting. So I don't want to say in exchange because it's not really like that, but if we were to all agree that questions are sent to me and addressed to me and Sean's copied so that he doesn't feel like he needs to jump on it and answer your email at 2:00 in the morning, which you've done. And I can at least be the initial point of contact. Can we at least agree to that flow of concern, so that if a concern is coming, if someone calls you about robots or someone calls you about math or what, I'm trying to think of some of the things that have been an issue before, that you can at least come to me and I can be the one that says, is that part of the strategic plan? Did you see in the packet where this is here? Do you remember that we saw it 6 months ago in this other information? Those sorts of things, to take that off of Sean's plate. Is that something that we could at least try for a quarter, maybe, or till June, and see how it goes? Because I'm not trying to withhold any information. I am simply trying to give Sean and his team the space to do their job. And we're not going to change the one-on-one meetings. We're not going to change the, everybody's still going to have each other's cell phone numbers. I'm simply saying this might be something fun to try, to see if it brings down the temperature of everything. Is that? Yes.
Share a few thoughts. So,
Sure.
number one is I do think Sean has a difficult situation with having 7 bosses. That's the reality of a superintendent with a school board, is that dynamic. And I agree that the board president can be helpful in trying to make it manageable. But my view is the board president is not the go-between. There are so many questions that we have that like when you even bring up math questions, robotics questions, you don't have any more information than any other board member. So calling you is just a chance for you to share your opinion with the board member and then move on. And it's like, I'm not looking for board members' opinions, me personally. I'm looking to bring a question to Sean. And so my view is I have found it helpful when we have questions for Sean if the whole board is CC'd, because if I see a board member is asking a question that I've also had, then I think, oh, I don't need to now send that question. So number one, it makes it, I think, have less questions on that. The point of Sean not needing to answer all questions is a decision that I feel like is for Sean to decide. If he feels like questions come to him that have nothing to do with his expertise, that's more of a board discussion, then I think it's totally appropriate for him to say, Amy, would you please respond for these few questions? And then there's the conversation. But at least for me personally, the majority of questions that I have, recently, even this week or last week, I asked a question about finances. Okay, you don't have any access to documentation that I don't. George doesn't have any access to documentation that I don't. So I'd ask Sean, but then part of the difficulty that we're finding is when questions are being asked to Sean, we're getting opinions from board members in response. And so it's discouraging some board members from wanting to CC everyone, because then it's a long lecture from certain board members about their opinion on the question, yet the question is for Sean.
So that is something I also thought of, and it's something I've been calling in my head project questions, where it's not a matter of, hey, would you like chicken or beef? And the answer is chicken, and everyone moves on. Those are the easy ones. Project questions are things where someone's going to have to go dig in boxes that are stored somewhere and do a bunch of research that is going to take a great deal of time and energy away from their other duties. And I believe, and this is something I had planned to talk about elsewhere, but okay, I believe that if we ask a question of Sean and his team, and Sean believes it's going to take an amount of time that is outside of what's reasonable, maybe more than an hour, or I don't know what that number would be, that we come together as a group and we say, okay, this is the question that has been raised. This is the why behind that question. This is the amount of time the central office estimates it's going to take. Do we as a body feel that that's a worthwhile use of the office's time? And I thought, and maybe I dreamed it, I thought we had agreed that that was how we were going to go forward, but it's been a minute and there's a lot. So those project questions in particular, I think are something going forward once we have the strategic plan in place, once we know where we're going as a district, those are going to, A, naturally fall off because it'll be, well, that's not in the strategic plan. And B, I don't feel that that's an appropriate use of our central office's time, unless there's some compelling reason that the questioner can give as to why that's relevant today. So, David, you had something to say a few minutes ago. Oh, go ahead.
So in my view, if a board member has requested something of Sean, and it is, like you said, this massive request that's going to take hours, that he has concerns that this isn't just I can answer in Friday notes. I think it's a valid response for him to say, let's bring it to the board meeting. Let's talk about what this entails. Can we adjust it? We actually had this happen, I don't remember the date, when I had asked for information about the construction accounts. It was, this is a lot of information. And honestly, without reading the emails, I can't remember if it was him or Amy or Rachel, one of the presidents, that had said, you can't have it. Let's discuss it at the board. But the point is, it did come to the board. We did take a vote. The vote was 4-3 that, Sean shouldn't spend time getting that information that I had asked for. And so from a board point of view, that did end that conversation. Now, I continue and other community members continue to ask questions about finances. That information's never been shared. And so then I went down the route of a public records request to get it. The difficulty, like this example that we had, was in this process, like you reached out to me and said, I need you to change this. This is too much work. What about this? Yet you have nothing to do with the documents. So talking to you about it isn't helpful, because then you have to go explain to Sean. It'd be Sean or Michelle saying, this is what you're asking. This is like going to take us tons of hours. What if we adjust it this way? Okay, well, that meets my needs. So this middle person is just complicating it. And so once
Can I
again,
explain why we need a middle person real quick?
yeah, you can sure.
Great. I've worked with Sean closely for over a year now, and I've known him since he started here. He's not the kind of person who's going to tell you no. He's just not. He's going to say, I may be up all night doing that, but I'm going to get it done because Dacia asked me to. And that's where the conduit, as it says in the book, makes sense, because I can be the person who says, listen, that's going to be a 25-hour project or a 10-hour project. Is that really the most efficient use of those 10 hours? And you might think yes, and I might think no. And that's where, when it comes to the board, the majority rules. So that's why there needs to be someone who can say, well, time out, that's too much. And again, it's not that I'm trying to hide anything, but Sean's been here for 3 years now. And there's a lot that people are concerned with that we need to just move on from. Rachel, you said you had your hand up. Oh, David, sorry, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't. It was you. Okay. I'm sure we look very much alike.
I'm sorry. Sometimes you do eyes, and I can't tell if that means.
So I have a few thoughts.
Yeah.
First, so I have a few thoughts around this. First, I think that it's really, you had mentioned like not veering from the strategic plan. I think it's also important to remember that the strategic plan is going to be a living document.
Yes.
There are going to be things that come up that we need to address that aren't in the strategic plan. So we have to be very careful about saying, well, it's not in the strategic plan, so we're not going to focus on it. The strategic plan will give us a lot of direction, but things will change, especially given the changes that are happening at both state and federal level. We're gonna have to make a lot of decisions that will have to veer away from the strategic plan. So I think that's something
But
important.
those decisions will also be made in a public meeting rather than, an email. So
Right,
please go
yes,
on.
but I do think that, now I'm getting feedback, that I think we need to be careful when people recommend things that we don't say, well, it's not in the strategic plan. Because sometimes those might be things that we do need to discuss as a group to make a decision on if we want to add that into the strategic plan. I also think that it's important to remember that Dr. Greiner does not have 7 bosses. He has one boss, that's all of us together. We are each, I am not his boss. We have to work together to give direction, and we have to focus that direction in ways that will ultimately advance the strategic plan. So when we do have things that we as individuals want, or things that we're hearing from the community that may take time, I think we have to talk about those in these meetings, whether it's a working meeting or a regular meeting. We have to talk about that rather than us individually asking for things. And I think that they need to be things that that do align with where we're going. I think that there are things that we have no control over that working through those aren't going to advance us and aren't going to change anything. And so I think we have to be careful not to go down, get caught on things that aren't going to make a difference. I also think that as a new board member, I do find it helpful when people email everybody with the questions, especially specific to the packets, because I might not have thought about a question related to something that's actually a really good question for me as a new board member to hear and to get the response to. So I think specifically on things related to the board packet, I think it's important for everybody to get those questions.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I think that's one piece that I think we could say that any questions specific to the board packet, everybody is included on that email so that we all get the response. I think we also need to be thinking about the timeline for that, for asking questions. We've been getting the materials well before Friday notes, but like for questions to come on a Friday morning, that I think we do, and I don't know if I think I might have asked questions one day, but like we need to make sure that there is enough time, or that there's not an expectation that that goes immediately into those Friday notes on that day. That way, Dr. Greiner and everybody else can focus on the things that they had already had planned for that day, because we don't want to shift their focus into other areas that when they already have plans. Because I know if I, in my schedule, it's so tight that if I have one thing added in, it shifts everything and it makes it really difficult to continue to make progress. And so I think we need to have expectations of timelines for questions that aren't that day.
I like that. Rachel?
So I have 3 thoughts to this. One is in response to David. As you know, we, and this is something Dr. Greiner and I worked through long and hard for the first 2 years he was here, is what should that timeline be? And so, in fact, the board packet, he moved the board packet availability up a day and also started populating the file, thanks to Mrs. Julian, earlier, so that documents were in there. So they've already really stretched, I think, what they can do. The deadline used to be anything that was going to relate to the meeting needed to be in by noon on Friday, but there wasn't the expectation that it would hit. And then I think we even talked about moving that to Thursday. It does mean putting it on your personal schedule. I will set aside this time to review the board documents prior to this date. And that's a style choice among members, I believe, how prepared they want to be to the meeting. But yeah, you want to respond to that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe it's more that we, Dr. Greiner has been really wonderful with responding to questions, but I feel like we don't have to have those responses in the Friday notes. I mean, they're wonderful. I'm glad that we have those, but like, you have more, give Dr. Greiner more time. And be very clear, we don't expect to have that, so that your Friday, like if somebody asks questions by a noon deadline, so that there isn't an expectation that they're due by the or that he gets those responses, so that you can do your job on Friday instead of trying to address our questions that aren't pressing. We can wait till Monday for responses, or even until the board meeting. I think that that's more than fine. But just setting those expectations so that you're able to do your job without having to shift your schedule.
Just as also just a point of comparison on that, when I was board chair, it was not uncommon to receive lengthy lists of questions Monday at noon. And it was very difficult for central office staff to be able to be prepared for those. I also will say, over my time on the board, I have changed the types of questions that I asked. When I started, it would have been nothing for me to put through 5 to 10 questions about a board packet. But what I have come to, my viewpoint, I'm just sharing for what it's worth, is I review the packet for an eye to what I would need to make a vote. So for me, it is, am I prepared to make a vote with the information that is provided? And in that scenario, that is exactly where the materials say you go to your board chair. Hey, board chair, I don't have this information that I'm going to need to make a vote, and it's their job to make sure that we get that information. Maybe they already have it, maybe they need to go get it, whatever that is. That is the nature of the questioning that I ask. Can I vote? Can I not vote? With comfort, with confidence. The other thing I want to kind of back into this conversation a little bit is I have to question if we're setting our superintendent up to fail. 1/4 of his evaluation is based on relationship with the board. And that is 25%. And that is the difference between effective and highly effective or ineffective. And we have to understand that we are managing him to success. It's not fair to sit down in a meeting with him and say, well, you're not meeting my needs. I'm not happy with your communication. and then downgrade him on the evaluation, when in reality, a fully functioning board would have cohesive questioning and work with our superintendent. I have been through enough of those superintendent evaluation meetings that I think this is a matter of very grave concern, and is why any superintendent, Sean or any superintendent, would strive to meet each board member's needs, even if it is painful, even if it is not productive, because their job depends upon it. And that's the structure. And we're making Dr. Greiner very uncomfortable right now. So sorry, sir.
We are talking about the man like he's not sitting here.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm looking at you like.
I'm really not uncomfortable.
Okay. So, I mean, I think we cannot have this conversation unless it's like, if we tell our superintendent everything that they are to do, we cannot hold them accountable for results. And we can't have it both ways.
Thank you. And to be fair, I did talk with Sean about this, and he thinks things are working well now and, has no complaints. It's my comfort of what we're doing to him and his team that we're talking about here. You had something. Don't forget about it. There you go.
First of all, I would like to follow up with what David suggested. Actually, I did the same thing when I asked Sean questions about the packet. Actually, I almost every time I say you don't have to write that in the Friday notes because it takes a lot of time. I totally understand. The only reason I send him questions beforehand is to help them prepare for the Monday meeting. It's not the intention to have them written in the Friday notes. Actually, I think for transparency, it's better we talk about it at the meeting, and so the public can understand, can hear the questions and hear the answers, because the questions often, at least I ask the kind of common questions, maybe the community also are wondering. And so, but I also agree that we shouldn't overwhelm Sean with too many questions. And so one strategy, Amy, you suggested is people go through you. Another possible way might be that we, as a whole board member, together, we kind of filter the questions that board members may have, especially for the ones, for example, the Friday notes. Sometimes I do have questions about Friday notes, but I kind of intentionally hold those questions because I don't want to overwhelm Sean. But I would like to ask questions to colleagues, board colleagues. So, some other people, maybe Amy, maybe some other who are more experienced, or Rachel, know the answer to my questions. I think that would be very helpful. And so to solve that problem, I think it would be helpful to have 2 email lists, one with Sean, the current one, school board email with all the board member and Sean together on it. Another one just for the board members, so we can share questions, answers. And so if there are questions that nobody can answer, then we ask Sean.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
So, yeah, because, it's like I also agree with Daisha. And sometimes, Amy, you are very experienced. You know the school very well. I can see that. But sometimes you may not know some of the activities. For example, the reason we have 7 board members because different people bring in different experience and expertise, so we can help each other, right? So if we just filter those questions all together, kind of brainstorm, help each other, then only leave the questions that nobody can answer and bring that to Sean.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
So another thing is I have to say, we need to kind of, I think we are improving it already. And so just change the culture of the board to kind of help each other rather than, be kind of...
assume worst intentions of each other?
Yeah, assume bad intentions. Exactly. So you shouldn't ask this question. What do you mean by asking this question? People have different perspective, different knowledge, different experience. It's not... I believe everybody are trying to help out. So with that assumption, then we help each other. And
so what would you think about having a kind of a living email where after the meeting tonight, I go home and I send an email to the people on my left and I say, great meeting, guys. Let me know if you have any questions. And for the rest of the month, we use that thread as a discussion for, oh, hey, I saw this in the packet for March and I'm a little concerned about, I don't understand this fund or whatever.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, absolutely.
I would,
Yep.
I turned it on.
I thought you did
Is it
too.
on?
Yeah, it's weird.
It was. Okay. I think it's on. Okay, good. I would like to suggest, if the board would entertain it, that I would actually prefer to be involved in every email, because I do serve as a group, and I'd like to know if someone has if I can answer a question for someone, and it's just going to be easier for all of you, because you're all working too, I would like to do that. But if you do a separate email and I'm off of it, I won't necessarily know what someone's struggling with. And if you do a group email like you're talking about, that you just go ahead and if Dr. Yen says to Dr. Purper, hey, I think you might be able to answer this question, then I won't answer. But I'll know you guys are having that dialogue. So I'll know that I can connect if I need to. And I want to have a solid relationship with each one of you. So I would actually prefer to be in the email, only because I know then what each one of you is or isn't struggling with, or information that I may have. But yeah, I like the idea of going to individual, and I love the idea of a culture where every board member knows that every other board member wants to support each other. But I'd like to be a part of that if the board would entertain that.
Sure. I appreciate that. And I'm not sure how we would.
May I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just, can you promise don't reply emails right away? Because I know you work very hard, and because you work so hard, sometimes I feel I don't want to ask questions. I don't want to take your time seriously. And when I read the Friday notes, I have questions here and there. I said, okay, don't ask questions because I'll take more Sean's time, and I feel bad about it. And so, yeah, I just figure out a way. Support can help each other, but you are the last resort.
Yes, so yes to that. If you say, Dr. Purper, I was wondering, then yes, I promise. But if you say, Dr. Greiner or Sean, what do you think about such and such? At least I want to say, thank you for the question, Dr. Yen. I'm going to research that, and then I'm good. I just want you to know I heard you, and then I'm working on it. So if it's to me, if I respond, I'm not upset if I'm saying I'm looking for the answer. It's just that I may not have it yet. So.
I think what she's actually asking you is to set a do not disturb setting on your phone. So
So in my
after 10 o'clock,
career,
stop
since I
asking.
became a principal, that hasn't existed for me. I would be way out of my comfort zone if I did that.
I sent him an email at like 11:30 at night, and he wrote back, and what are you doing? This is when I'm free. You should be sleeping. Yue, go ahead, and we'll work our way back this way.
Yeah, another kind of related question is, this about the public access to the information. Because if we have a lot of discussion while email, and potentially, we kind of having a meeting while email, which is not preferred
wanna
way,
be
right?
deciding things.
So exactly, it's actually a related question is, I noticed that it typically costs a lot of money for us when somebody submit a public request, access request. I feel if we can streamline that process, make it easier for the public to request information, and then that might be better. But right now, looks like the system discourages the public to submit a public access to information, because if they do, then it costs us, the district, a lot of money. Actually, I saw on the social media, some people criticize those who submit a public request. Oh, you wasted the district money. I don't think they should be kind of criticized, and it's their right to ask for information. And I hope we can reduce the cost for that, for the public. And so again, back to the email conversation, if we share a lot of information email, and all of them actually are subject to public access. And I don't want it to be so costly for people to ask for it.
That makes sense. George knows a lot about this because he's a lawyer, and then we'll come back to Rachel.
So ideally, a public access request or a FOIA request is not supposed to be somebody's first stop. And for a unit like a school board, if people are filing public access requests, that usually means one of two things. Either that this person does this as a hobby, or we have not done our job by putting out the information that people need to see. So if we are getting public access requests all of the time, then something's wrong and we need to investigate what is actually happening. So one thing I would love, and this is a question for you guys, just so you know, if we could get some historical data on public access requests, how many we get, whether there are times where we get more than others, and not necessarily who exactly was asking for them, but whether or not we get multiple from the same person. And so that would go a long way towards helping us decide how to rebuild that process.
So yes, we can get you that information, and the lady that is our point person is right back to your left in the back of the room, Mrs. Julian, and I can have her pull that information. And do you want to write notes? How would you like that information to the board?
Friday notes is fine, because that way everybody sees it, you know, in the spirit of transparency that we're talking about.
Rachel, you've been so patient.
We're all patient. We're having a conversation. I have to say this. There is an elephant in the room, and the elephant's been in the room for a long time. It is very difficult, and I admire your ability, Amy, to continue to strive to build a collaborative. I love UA's description of that and how we should be working together. It is difficult to have confidence when I know that Daisha's going to call you names in a summary. And so how are we open in building that? And then also knowing that anything that we say could be speculatively interpreted for other people and sent to the email addresses of all of our teachers. So that is a sticking point for me. Those of you who've been on the board, you know it's a sticking point for me for a long time. Trust and collaboration requires trust. And that is something that is earned as much as it is given. So I'm going to continue to struggle with that kind of degrading conversation or statements. I don't have any problem with facts being conveyed, but I have a lot of problem with speculation being conveyed. And just to be frank, Amy, you've been called a lot of awful names in the past 90 days by one member. And I don't think that that's appropriate. And I don't think that's going to give us the culture we need.
Thank you. David, did you have something, or am I misremembering hands?
Not anymore.
Okay. Daisha?
Yes, so in regard to the email list, I actually agree with Dr. Greiner and feel like that the training that we've received is that he is a part of any interaction with the board so that he's aware of what's going on. So that is definitely what I would prefer. And I think just very clearly, whoever it's sent to seems to demonstrate who it's going to. If it's a question for Sean, it will be addressed to Sean. Here's my question. If it's a question for Amy, here's that. But then everyone can be informed. I think part of the thing that will help a lot of this, you were talking about questions with the agenda packet, is a lot of school districts have work sessions days before or even weeks before the agenda meeting so that questions can be asked, so that everybody at the same time from the board can ask questions and central office can prepare what information and documentation they need. Because in the past, the president has chosen not to allow that, the only way to ask questions is through email and then hope he will answer through Friday notes or there. So I think that would help with lower the emails if we had work sessions that would allow this conversation. The other thing that I think, just my perspective, is I think Sean's a great leader and I think he's very capable. And I have witnessed myself that he is capable of making these decisions, that if he doesn't feel like he needs to do something or want to do something, that he's capable of setting boundaries or saying, I'll provide that in a few weeks, or doing whatever. And if he's choosing to respond immediately or quickly, that he has decided that that is what he thinks is best. And so I feel like this conversation in some ways is trying to tell him what the board should be doing to help him, that he has not himself said he would like. And so to me, I would think board communication, I would like to talk about as a board some of these topics about communicating with each other, not about limiting communication with Sean unless he decides he wants to bring concerns to the board and has thoughts for us. And to me, that's very important to hear.
George?
You know, that's actually a good point, and for a different reason. One of the big problems that I've had, first as a citizen and now as a new board member, is that those emails that go directly to Dr. Greiner and don't include the rest of the board, they're not transparent, and they actually leave the rest of the board in the dark about what kind of information is being sought. So, yeah, I agree. Dr. Greiner is a adult man with PhD and can decide his own workload. But in the interest of making the board work together a lot better, in the interest of transparency and all the goals that we've just been talking about, it would be better if we did not individually email him without including the rest of us. So that way we all know what one another's talking about, because we make decisions as a unit and not as individual board members.
Sure. Daisha, go ahead.
I think that's great. I think that it would be helpful if questions are sent to Sean. If he wants a board member to, or the board president to answer, then he can do that. But otherwise, not having board members answer, because that's the difficulty I have had. I've continued to do it, but it's very hard to send Sean a question and then get a very long, lengthy lecture of Amy's opinion, Rachel's opinion. And I think my question is to Sean. And so if we would like to encourage board members to send it to everyone, if the questions are to Sean, then Sean needs to answer them. If the questions are to board members, then that's a different scenario.
Daisha, I just find it so interesting that it's fine for you to email everyone in town your opinion, but if I share mine via email, that's somehow offensive to you. That just really blows my mind. David, go ahead.
I think this is what is really bothering me personally and a lot of people. I think we all need to assume best intentions in responses to emails and how we're working more broadly. I think it's important that none of us are specifically calling out anybody else, whether it's in a board meeting or in any other type of communication. We need to work together. We need to constructively work together. I don't, I'll be honest, I don't agree with the commentary about others, especially using specific names like Amy's. I also feel like in emails that I've been included on, that there has been a tone that hasn't assumed, and it could just be my assumption, but hasn't assumed best intentions. I think we need to think twice about sending how we're sending emails to each other. I know earlier, was it this week or last week? This is Monday. So last week, the days have just blended together the last couple of weeks. George and I were going back and forth about minutes. I had to take some extra time and rewrite one of my emails, just assuming that he was coming from the best intentions, which he was. I think we were seeing things from different perspectives, but I think it's important for us to, with our emails to each other, make sure that they are in a collegial tone and that they're constructive. I think that we all should agree not to be calling each other out using names or any public criticism of each other. We have to work together. We have to collaborate. We have to demonstrate to the students in our community that we can work together despite differences, and it's not about an individual person or their failings, but how can we work to make things better together.
Rachel, do you have something? Nope.
I 100% agree with that. I think that there is no board member, myself included, and that's a very hard line that I have drawn. I may give my thoughts in an email, but I try and do that professionally. But at no point in time have I made any public statement in 11 years disparaging another board member or any member of our staff, our superintendent, our teachers, anyone, because that's not the role of a board member. And I think that is an important line for all of us to consider, and that's really at the point of it. It's not okay to go and talk trash about the people you're on a board with. It's not okay to do that. It shouldn't be okay. And I am going to continue to say that for the next 2 years that I'm on the board, if that is how it's going to be, that we're still going to go out and talk garbage about each other.
Thanks. Yue, did you have something also?
I agree with what David said. We need to change the culture to be helpful to each other, and let's do it from today.
Thank you. George?
You know, I was going to make a joke about being offended by David calling me out, but then I remembered he's probably not actually calling me out.
I had an immediate, I had an immediate reaction to your email, which was a very well-founded email, but I was like, why doesn't he get what I'm thinking? But it's what I'm thinking. You don't know what I'm thinking. And so I had to take a step back and think about the response that I was providing so that it was clear and that we could have that collegial back and forth. And I think we all need to do that with all of our emails with each other, because we need to work together and think about how can we spend time focusing on the things that really do matter.
Yeah, and the reason I actually wanted to make that joke, and I'm glad you responded in the way you did, was it's an example of the things that we need to do as a unit. If we're all smart enough and brave enough and entrusted by the public enough to email each other with kindness and respect to solve issues, I think we shouldn't restrict ourselves when it comes to email amongst each other. If a board member has a comment or some knowledge they can offer on a subject that has been emailed back and forth between the president and the superintendent, they should be allowed to do so. Because honestly, if we can survive an email conversation, you know, if we can survive being on a Substack being called names, surely we can survive an email conversation too, right? Oh, by the way, I did also want to ask, I do have everybody's permission to take secretary-style notes, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Lawrence, you've been conspicuously quiet. Before we wrap up this conversation, I'd like to check in with you.
I think I don't have too much to share, but I think back to a communication school board with school administrations. I think there's two kind of questions. One is related to their day-to-day operations. So that's supposed to be school admins. They should be their expertise and there's their authorities, their domains to answer those questions. And there's another kind of questions regarding our school board, how we work together, how we build up things, teamwork. So there's two kind of questions. So I think I think that better way is just send the email to Sean, and Sean can make his education administrators. He can handle that. I mean, if they forward back to our board, we work together, that's fine. So my point is, we don't want the email kind of conversation. That's not what Open Door, Indiana Open Door require, because we don't want to have back forth email, and then during the email we make decisions. We try to make decisions or shared opinions. I think that may be not the best way. And regarding everybody on the same page, I think that you have email questions to Dr. Granner, administration teams, and he will put everything, both answer and the questions on the Friday note. So there's a little bit, a couple of days delay. Other than that, everybody pretty much on the same page. So I think that's won't be a big issue. So I think that's all I want to share. Thank you.
So you're happy with the way it is now? Is that what you're saying?
What?
You're happy with the way the flow of information is happening right now, and you don't want to change anything? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, what we're doing right now is okay. But what I'm trying to say is we don't want, back forth emails. That we end up we try to make decisions over email, not in the public meetings. So that's what Open Door kind of law are required, and there's some case regarding that kind of thing. So we try to avoid that. Just put everything, in this meeting. So that's my opinion.
David,
Thank
then
you.
George, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, Lawrence.
So I think our key things from today are that if we have questions that are specific to the packet and really more general questions as well, everybody is included on it. If it's directed specifically to Dr. Greiner, he should be the one responding to it. If it's more general, then whoever has the information, or we can direct it to a specific person if they might know. In terms of responding, we will all pause and think through that. I think we should also remember that we all have delay send, so that we don't send an email at 11 at night. That I recognize that Dr. Greiner can handle his own schedule and everything, but there is a power dynamic of we as a group are his boss, and that there's a pressure and to respond regardless of when you get that email. So let's also be considerate and make even just of each other with that. I know we only have 4 minutes. Part of what prompted this discussion at our last meeting was a discussion of how do we respond to the public when they ask us questions. So I think that the way that we had left that, and we probably wanted to make a decision on that, was that if they email just one of us, then we send it out to the board, take away any personal information if we think that's important, and George is the one to respond. Then we discuss as a group or see who has the answer for that, and then send out that. I recognize that there may be some instances where somebody wants to have a personal conversation with one of us because they're comfortable with that, and I think that's okay. I think we're all we all have different communities within the broader community, and being able to hear from people is important, and for them sharing with people that they feel comfortable sharing with is important, but we need to make sure that the rest of the group hears the concern and is able to share a group perspective.
Even emailing everybody after that conversation
Yeah.
and saying, I had an interaction today and wanted to let you know the concern I heard might be valuable.
Yeah.
I like it. George?
Yeah, I was going to bring up that same thing about how we need to come to a decision about public communication. But also, Lawrence, with regard to violating open record and open door laws, that's one of the reasons why we try to emphasize emails, because the email is accessible through public records laws. But also, I think all of us are capable of not violating open door laws by not coming to decisions via email. I mean, that's something that we've all been trained on via ISBA trainings, and we emphasize that here all the time. So I don't think that we're going to be in any danger of that, because if we do start conspiring, then it's all in the public record and can be discovered anyway.
That's true.
I'm not planning on conspiring, so.
I think this was a really valuable conversation. I appreciate everyone remaining chill. We're going to take a 2-minute break, so be quick, and we'll come back in a couple minutes for the regular meeting, adjourned at 5:50. Okay, we need to get going. It is 6:04. So I would like to call the meeting to order because I'm so excited to hear about our guest. Please, yeah.
I'm assuming I'm gonna have my presentation somewhere out there. You got it. Thank you, sir. Oh, look at you, that was fast.
Yes. Oh, her microphone. Is your microphone? Is your microphone?
Do you need to push a button? Okay,
It's on.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. I'm Margaret Saros, principal at West Lafayette Intermediate School, and I'm very proud today to start. If we can go to the next slide, please. Oh, I have a little thing here, don't I? This is for me. Thank you.
We're so high-tech now.
I didn't
It's
look down. I was
overwhelming.
like, look, there's something there. So I'm very excited because this is a first for me, and I've been working with kids since 1996. Don't do the math. I know you can, but don't do it. And I have never had a student that has published a book and has it on Amazon for anyone to order. Hint, hint, for those of you who haven't picked up an order or a copy yet. But I'm very proud of her, and I want to introduce to you an author today, a 6th grade student in our building, Felicia. Okay, I'm going to try and get this right. No, we were saying it wrong. It's, yeah. All right, she's nodding at me. All right, good. And Felicia has a wonderful story that she has published already, and she's already working on several others. And I have no doubt that she will have more copies in the future. So we're very proud of her and want to have her come up for a moment. I'm hoping she'll sign my copy. She hasn't done that yet. And also want to say that she's an example of what our kids can do. So never put a ceiling on our kids because they're going to go above and beyond every time. So come on up here.
Okay, so my name is Felicia Xie, and I'm a 6th grader at West Lafayette Intermediate. Thank you to Dr. Greiner, the school board, and Mrs. Visaros for inviting me here to talk today. So writing has always been a part of my life, but I think that it would never bring me to this level if not for this school corporation. It all began in around 2nd grade when I was in Mrs. Reed's class, and I was given this assignment with a blank hardcover book and the words, "Make this into a book." So I immediately thought of how me and my sister had basically played a small game with our stuffed animals, and that eventually evolved into 3 kingdoms, 3 main characters with magical powers, and a war. So I turned this in as my project, and when Mrs. Reed read this, she was like, "Wow, Felicia, this is almost like a real book." So inspired by her words, I basically started researching how to publish a book, and half a year later, this became this, and it was now in print. So that was a good accomplishment. That was basically that sort of like, well, I wrote a book, that sort of thing. So during 3rd grade, I was lucky enough to have this amazing teacher named Mrs. Flawless, who did my book as a read aloud, along with this kind librarian, Mrs. Carroll, who actually displayed my book in her library. Fast forward a half a year where I was basically just free writing, that kind of kick back and relax type of thing with words. And I was now in 4th grade, where I was in Mrs. Brown's class, and I was reunited with these 2 1st grade friends who we had basically just played this game about vampires and werewolves, and one of them wanted to bring it back. So we did, but it was always quite awkward because we were like 4th graders, and before we were just like immature 1st graders, and now we were 4th graders. So after one attempt at playing, I voiced this idea that had crossed my mind several times. How about we make this into a book? And so an early plot of Hunter and the Wolf was born. And by the end of 4th grade, I had basically a sense of what it would be about and the first 30 pages in it. Now, in the summer, I wasn't really paying attention to it as I had other things, and yeah. So in 5th grade, I started focusing a lot more in it, so my classmates soon knew about it, and I had 2 people that actually helped me edit, who were my classmates. And yeah, so in 5th grade, by the end of 5th grade, I got the first draft done, and I actually had some very obvious mistakes caught by them as well. So in the summer, the first draft of Hunter and the Wolf was printed with this kind of bland blue copy. And yeah, so in 6th grade, I enlisted the help of Mrs. Fernandez, who's a 4th grade teacher at our intermediate school, and I learned a lot from her editing. I finally was able to organize and rewrite properly, and it was just really almost life-changing, yeah. So slowly, this 450-page thing became the version that you know now. And it was finalized in around November, which brought me to the issue of the cover. Obviously, I did not want this not really eye-appealing, bland blue thing. So I was fortunate enough to have 4 friends that designed a solid cover within one Zoom call. And eventually it evolved into the cover you know now. And then came the issue of word spreading. How would people know about my book? Immediately, I thought of how publishing companies released book trailers every time there was a book fair at our school, and how it was almost movie-like and very exciting. So after some playing around with some softwares and stuff, I released a book trailer. And finally, in December 30th, 2024, Hunter and the Wolf was published. Thank you to Mrs. King, Mr. Harmon, Mrs. Stan, Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Flawless, and Mrs. Reed for being such great teachers over the years. Thank you to Alex, Augie, and his older sister Novia, and my sister Jessica for being such great editors, classmates, and friends. Thank you to Willis and Willes for also helping me grow as great schools for my writing. And thank you for listening to my speech today.
Felicia, we have a couple questions, if that's
I just wanted to say that was a really good speech.
Thank you.
But also, I want to know, how did you find the time to do this?
Well, I would say just like I really prioritize my time much more in that, like, because my time management was quite not that great before this, but now, yeah, I learned a lot about time management within this and got more done. Yeah, so.
We are so proud of you. I want to know if you want to be an author when you grow up, or if you're going to be like, I did that when I was 12, I'm going to move on to nuclear physics.
Oh, I want to be an author when I grow up. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm just in awe. I opened it up to a random page last month when Dr. Greiner brought your book, and the sentence I found was just beautiful, and I would never have guessed that it was written by someone who is in 6th grade. You are very talented, and I can't wait to see what you do with it. So thank you for coming tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I want to know, generally speaking, good writers are also good readers. So I'm a little bit curious about what you are reading.
Well, basically anything I find at the public library that looks interesting. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep doing that.
Okay.
You had good.
And I happen to know Felicia. Actually, she's really multi-talented, and she won international piano awards, multiple. And in addition, just yesterday, at the mass counts competition, she's the top 24 in the chapter.
That's incredible.
2016, right? Anyway, you are the top ones in the whole chapter.
Thank you.
One of the top ones. Yeah, I'm also wondering about how you manage all those things together.
That's incredible.
Concurrently.
So much time. Do you sleep?
Yeah.
Good, okay. David, go ahead.
After our last board meeting, I went home and shared about this with my kids, and one of my 8-year-olds was like, I want to do that too. You inspired her, and she's been trying to write some stuff out for her story for herself. And so the work that you're doing is really inspirational. I hope that you'll work with Mrs. Saros and others to share your story with some of the younger kids in the school and show what's possible. Like I'd suggest doing like an author signing event, like people bring their books, you sign it, but you also give a little talk to them, kind of like how you shared your story with us, how that's something that kids in our community can do. And I just think it's a great story. We're super proud of you. This is really, really cool.
Thank you.
48 and I'm inspired, so that's
Alicia, you
amazing.
are inspirational, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come and speak to the board today.
Thank
Because I would want to meet you and hear all about your success and your journey to get to where you are today. So thank you for taking the time to come this evening.
Thank you all too.
Okay. I don't know how you're going to top
I
that.
know, I'm not even going to pretend to top that because she's pretty fabulous. And I'm really, honestly, lucky to have met her and lucky to have her in our building. And look, I can't even figure out how to go to the next slide, let alone talk like she did. There we go. I will tell you very little has changed on this slide since the last time I presented to you. We have very similar numbers. Our enrollment currently is 534 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, plus we have 4 essential skills students with a total of 538. Our free and reduced number is 24.1 based on 2023 data from the Indiana GPS. Our overall special ed is 7.9 now. We have 43 students currently in special ed, 9 of which are speech and language, and 29 that access the resource room, 4 of those, as I said earlier, from the essential skills room. We have 38 teachers and 39 support staff that are all very important in our building. Thank you. Some highlights for our building. We have something that just started this year that I am so excited about, and I can't wait till January of next year to have it again. We had our first cultural night, and it was incredible to see what was happening in our building that night. The picture on the left is the lady in the front is a parent of one of our students in 6th grade, and she was leading our students who were learning a dance. So that was pretty awesome to see them all out there experiencing something that maybe they hadn't explored before. We had different outfits from different national, from different cultural groups. We had food, we had games and music and so many things to see and touch and feel and hear from parents who were sharing all their wonderful knowledge. So I was so excited about this, and we started small this year. We only had 11. It was based on volunteering, so anyone could volunteer to lead and to participate. We had 11 groups that stepped up and came, and we thought that was great for the first year. We hope to grow that. We want to see everyone represented, and so hopefully in the future we'll see more that join in. We're ready for growth in this program, so hopefully next year we'll see more of that. I definitely want to say thanks to Mr. Thailinda. He was exceptional in helping with that, and we have 28 different cultures that represent our building, so we're hoping, like I said, to be able to add to that in the future. And we also had some Purdue connections that came to share, so I thought that was another great way to bring in others. And we had a high school group that came to also learn from what we were doing, because they're wanting to do something similar, I think, through their group as well. Not pictured in our highlights, I also, because it just happened this weekend, our Math Counts competition, the chapter competition just happened on Saturday. And for those who don't know, Math Counts competes with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and we have a team from Willis that competes, but they are competing against 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in other schools. And we had second place, only to be beat by our junior high school. And so we're very proud of that, because there were our sweet little 6th graders, like Felicia, competing with kids that are sometimes 2 years older than them. And they're all heading to state, both the junior high and our team. We had, of the top 13, we had, of the top students, we had 13 that were West Lafayette students, and from the top 30, 26 of them all came from West Lafayette. So that says a lot. I want to acknowledge Mr. Hartman and Ms. Roberts, who were leading this group, along with some high school students that were former Math Counts kids in the past. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Also, something new that we started through Sarah Spears, who is our art teacher. She started a new club this year for children, and it turned out to be more than for children. We have a lot of teachers who volunteer their time on a Friday after school. Did you guys hear that? A Friday after school. That's like precious time. Nobody wants to give a Friday after school. Kids and teachers are coming together, and they are crocheting, knitting, and sewing, and they're learning how to do this. It's a means of relaxation, creativity, and socialization. Our kids are interacting with adults positively. They're interacting with 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, because they're all 3 in the same bundle. And it's grown so much that they're using more than one room now because of that. And so it's been a really great asset this year. This group is learning and teaching others. So as an example, in my own household, my daughter went home and said, I need to teach my brother how to do this. So she's teaching everyone. We're all going to be wearing crocheted items pretty soon. And so this all started with a little vision from Sarah Spears, because she said that was one of the things that she did for relaxation and thought that it would be beneficial for our students. So it's been wonderful to see something that is a little new and positive and different. Yes. Oh, I'd love some donations. I know she's taking those. Yes. Thank you. Another highlight, and I don't have the latest ISMA from this weekend again, because they performed for solo and piano on Saturday, but the one weekend before that, we had 72 gold and 1 silver award recipients for orchestra, and 12 gold and 3 silver award recipients for band. We also have several that are heading to the state with their performances due to the great work that they've done. And let's see if I missed anything there. I think that's everything for that slide. Some of our data, the black font is something that you've seen before. That was at the beginning of the year, what we had. The checkpoint data is over to the right in the purple. And I want to explain a little bit about that. Checkpoint 1 was taken the week of November 4th. Checkpoint 2 was taken the week of January 27th. We had some makeups that kind of lingered on because of illnesses. We were disappointed, honestly, in what our state results are giving us. We wanted more data. The data is not showing specifics that we hoped for. So as an example, for my child, or everyone's children actually, it's just giving us one number, and it doesn't break it down to specifics for each skill. So we have had to come up with, what do we want to do to be able to help our students still? The overall number is then given in, we get 4 proficiency levels for each child. So it's either going to be below proficient, approaching proficient, at proficient, or above proficient. And that's what we get for each and every checkpoint for language arts and for math. Due to this, we started thinking about how can we in our own building look for ways to get more detailed information about our students' performances so that we can best support them in growing. The other thing I want to share is that Checkpoint 1 and Checkpoint 2 have completely different standards that they're testing over. So they're not the same at all. So they're not really comparable for that reason, but they are said to be indicators to help us know more for the end of the year assessment. These are some of our goals that we laid out at the beginning. These are not new again, but just to give you a little update on what we're doing now, since we didn't have the information we were hoping for from the checkpoints. Our teachers have worked hard this year to isolate the standards in the checkpoints so they can see how their students are performing. We hope to have better details in our checkpoint results, but we are all getting to we're all getting to the point of looking past just the proficiency levels to be able to see how our students are performing. For math, we use the indicators provided from the IDOE to identify progression of proficiency of standards. In doing pre and post assessments, we were able to pinpoint the skills we wanted to improve for individual instruction. In literacy, we're using our newly adopted materials, which have diagnostic assessments, fluency checks, and unit mastery levels. Additionally, we use MAIS for comprehension and DIBELS for oral reading fluency and accuracy to identify students who need more instructional support. Giving students a quick phonics screener and nonsense word fluency allowed us to identify who was below grade level expectations. And if you can jump to the next slide, please, Brandon. This is an example of one of those indicators that we were using. So this is given to us by the state, and these are just two of the levels. They do this for every one of them with all 4 levels. So they have the standard, which is written up at the top there, and then they have what it looks like to be below proficient, a question that a student may answer compared to at proficient, and there's also above proficient and approaching. So they're giving us different levels of knowledge for that standard, and we're using that as a way to be able to help ourselves know what that may look like for our students. Thank you. So we also know that so much more is happening in our building, and the best is yet to come. As I put on there, we have several things to look forward to this year: Awards Day, music performances, 5th grade camp, Math Bowl, grade level fun nights, which one has happened. We have 2 more to go. Our 6th grade departure parade, that's kind of bittersweet, but certainly a highlight for our kids. The art show, field day, science fair. Our kids are working really hard right now to get ready for that. Living History Day, family PE night, 3rd grade transition to Willis, and our 6th grade police and fire department picnic, which is put on every year. So those are some of the things that we still have to look forward to. It's a busy end to our year, but we're certainly pleased with how far we've come and where we're heading. Any questions?
Thank you. That's amazing. Oh, you go ahead.
Just a comment. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's very impressive, and also the ECAs Willis has is so impressive. My 3 kids all enjoy them so much, and I noticed the recent. I'm not sure when you put it on, but I recently discovered a document your Willis put together about all the ECAs. It's so impressive, and thank you so much for what you and your team do for
I give credit to our teachers. They come up with a lot of these ideas or take a student's idea and make it possible. So that's really on them, but I will certainly tell them that I appreciate that they do that too.
Yeah, thank you. Just for public record, if anybody didn't see that document, they should check it out with all the activities Willis offer, all the kind of legacy the activities.
On our website.
Yeah, it's so cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And Felicia, if you and your family would like to stay, you are very welcome to, but if you would like to scoot, you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings because you're the best part of this meeting and you're done. Take your time. It's okay. Thank you. Actually, if anybody wants to scoot, I'm not going to be offended. All right, and this was not on our agenda, but I understand that Mr. Rogers has some good news to share, some recognitions.
Two really quick things. One, I got an invitation from the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra to attend this Wednesday, so in 2 days. Tara Kim, one of our students, she was selected as the recipient for the first prize award, and I could read it all, but I'm going to butcher it. So basically, in the virtuoso category of Michael Ben and Eileen Canissaro Moyer Young Musicians Competition. I hope I did that justice. But anyway, she's going to play Wednesday in a side-by-side concert, and I get to go watch. I actually get to bring my wife and go watch. So we're going to try to make a little date night out of it. According to Carol, this is the first student we've had win this. So
Wow.
I was in awe because I've already seen a lot of the talent, and that I already know how special she must be. So I'm excited to go watch that. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, Herr Stute, I think you're here, right? Do you want to say what the IASG, so I don't have to butcher another term up here?
Indiana Association of Students of German.
And what's the competition? The Staatskongress. At Muncie, there were 20 plus schools, and our students scored enough points overall to put the school first for the first time since 2020. Luca Reynolds placed 5th overall, correct? The National German Exam scores also came out, and that showed that 70% of the Germans in German 4 AP placed in the 90th percentile, meaning that 7 of the 17, we were 7 of the 17 in Indiana. So second and third year students placed well with 17 golds, 12 silvers, and 10 bronze. That's ranking nationally. So share those
Wow.
things. Thanks for letting me do that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I never cease to be awed at the level at which our students are performing across so many different fields. It's just incredible. Do we need to take a quick break, or are we good? Okay, yeah, okay, let's take a 5-minute break. We'll let Felicia and her family get going, and we'll come back at 6:36. On. Geez Louise, Amy Elizabeth. Harris Stute, would you like to come talk with us?
Good evening. My name is Mr. Stute, or Herr Stute. I teach German at the high school. And as you just said, and I think everyone in this room, certainly in this community, would be able to say, we have unbelievable students. I never, when a student says, well, when I was in second grade and I started, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, I'm so far behind. All the things we've accomplished over the years, but it's amazing what she's going to do in her life. And these amazing students are incredible faculty, and our community, which is so supportive, as we've seen both in the referendum and just in a daily basis when they come to events. When I first came here and I found out that they had elementary math night, I was kind of freaked out because I thought, what community did I come to that they actually love math so well? That and then I realized it's just an awesome place. But I'm actually here to talk to you, but also to talk to our community who is behind me watching, hopefully some people, to make people pay attention to two major things that are coming up that I think we should be aware of, and we have got to fight back. One is Senate Bill 1. Getting the funds for all. This bill, if it passes as it looks right now, and I will be remiss in not telling you that Senate Bill 1 means that that's a very high priority for the Senate. It is a bill that's being pushed by the governor. He wants to reform property taxes. And regardless of your feelings on that, this particular bill right now would cut massive amounts of money. And I'm sure that you've been hearing that from your own ISBOA as well. But it's important for our community to realize that this has to change. We cannot allow this to happen, both to our community schools as well as the community services themselves. In addition to that, the other thing I'm really concerned about is the efforts both on a national level as well as state level to change the way we do things with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that can be everything from including people of every gender, or it could be as simple as making sure that people that have disabilities have access to the resources that they need to have. So we need to be very careful on those two things. So I informed the community on two things. I want you to consider showing up at a meeting on Wednesday night at the Tippecanoe County Fairgrounds. It starts at 6, but the doors open at 5:30. The governor and lieutenant governor of Indiana, who never come to Tippecanoe County, are being sponsored by the local GOP community, but they are coming as a town hall. Now, in order to have your questions answered, you had to submit them through a system. So I imagine there isn't going to be a lot of that kind of thing there from the public, but I would encourage people to show up because I want them to understand that it's real people that they want to cut the budget up, whether it be police or firefighters or our teachers, et cetera. And the other thing I want to kind of tag on to what Willis was talking about a moment ago, we have a very long-standing, I know it's at least 25, probably 35-year-old tradition at this school of having one community, many cultures, or we like to call it in our department, in the World Language Department, WLCSC, because everything has to have an acronym. That is this Thursday, February 13th. It's open to the entire public. At 5:30, we start with wax museum performances, people talking about famous people from around the world. At 6 o'clock, we'll have performances. And as the MC, I can tell you it's 25 acts that are really great. So it's going to be a little over an hour. And around 7 p.m., we'll have food. For $3, you can eat your way around the world. And if you have not been to OCMC before, I mean, I enjoyed Lunar New Year this past week with the Asian Student Organization. But believe me, nobody brings bad stuff to this, okay? And it's a lot of food, and it's really enjoyable, and it's great to see the kids' projects, and it's a big culmination for the World Language Department. So it's a way to show your support for diversity and inclusion if you would come to that. Thank you. Yes, sorry. That is Thursday evening this week at starts at 5:30 with the first performances. The concert's at 6, and the food is at 7. And the food is in the LGI room.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Comment too that when Harris student, he always reminds me, don't forget OCMC's coming up, and I say, oh no, Mrs. Greiner put that on the calendar the day after last year, so we're set and ready to go.
Go ahead.
I was also just going to share, George, the performances, it's very casual. So like if you can't come right on time, students are coming and going. The whole event is a great family event, and it's a very good drop in, drop out, works with your schedule. Phenomenal. So I'm glad you shared that. Thank you.
Rachel?
I just want to know if the Lederhosen are going to be in play this year.
UA, did you?
Yeah, echo what Randy said. It's impressive and encourage people to go. And do you happen to have flyers? Is that circulated in the district? Yeah. Okay. Another thing is I remember the $3 entrance fee, cash only, right? Yeah, so let people know that. Maybe on the flyer or something. So yeah, because I went to some of them. It's so great, amazing. And
It's a great event.
yeah, thank you for organizing this.
I try to get my girls to sing in French every year, and they never do. Okay, I appreciate that information. Now we're going to move on to the consent agenda. I am looking for a motion, please. Move to approve by Rachel. Second by Yue.
Oh, may I pull out 2 items from it? I just have some comments, not necessary disagreement.
Would it be better to comment on them during your board report? Can we talk about it? Is it just informational, like this is happening, or is it more of a discussion?
I can comment now.
Okay, go ahead. We'll do that.
So one is the safe harbor. I would like to express my gratitude to Safe Harbor for conducting the family survey, because I feel that's very helpful and make me more confident about with my voting, because from the survey, it looks like overwhelmingly people love it. And I didn't see anyone says it didn't go well. And I think people either among 30 something responses, and they say either extremely very well, extremely good, or good. So nobody says it's not. So yeah, it's great. Thank you for serving our schools. Another one is for the summer school, and I kind of share my questions in my response to Sean's information. I think at some point, not necessary now, but at some point, it'll be helpful to list all the options for our students, in addition to the two online schools that we partner with, because they're also, at least I heard, like Purdue is an option and Ivy Tech can be an option. You know, some credits are acceptable for us as part of the high school requirements. And I know there are some other online school options like Indian IU high school. I'm not sure whether they are acceptable, but some teachers I heard, and so they said, oh, if your kids want to pass this, kind of skip a certain class, you can take that one. But I feel there's no official information about those issues. It would be helpful to kind of have a documented listing, okay, what are the options are, and the implications for each, like this one is free, that one you have to pay yourself or something like that. Yeah, again, nothing urgent, but I feel that kind of document will be helpful in the future.
Great, thanks. I think Rachel knows about summer school. So.
Yeah, my question, I guess, just a follow-up comment. I would be concerned about a widespread promotion of classes for high school students that would cost. I think that sets us up to have families feel, if they're not able to pay those fees, that they are somehow shortchanging their child. And so I just want to throw that opinion out there. I think it's great to promote summer school. I think it's also great to let kids have a break in the summer. And I think that's really up to their parents to decide. And I would feel more comfortable not promoting paying options to our students overall.
Okay, that's
2 cents.
an interesting conversation. Daisha?
I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and pull out the Indiana Online Academy, because I do think there's some questions and clarifications. So instead of having it now, I'd prefer to just pull.
That's fine. And if I remember correctly from last time, those don't require a second or a vote. So we'll just pull out number 7. So Rachel already, I'm sorry, Lawrence, do you need to pull something out as well?
Yes.
Okay.
The first item,
The-
the agenda, I want to pull them out. And also second one, item second.
The organizational
And
minutes.
organizational meeting minutes.
Okay.
Those two.
Anything else? Great. So Rachel moved to pass the consent agenda, which is now items 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10.
My motion to just include those items.
Thank you. And that's Rachel. And then could I have a second, David? Is that a second? Okay, thank you. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda? I have to do the thing now. Shoot. I forgot how. Oh, no. 3. Is that right? Yes. Hey. There we go. All right, there we all are. Goodness gracious. All right. Stop. So many buttons. There we go. All right. Lawrence, let's take these in numerical order. You pulled number 1. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, for number 1, for item number 1, the agenda, I would like to move, modify this agenda, our meeting agenda, add an discussion item on today's meeting agenda, basically something like a discussion committee assignment of board members. Thank you.
Okay. That feels like unfinished business to me. So I think let's put that needs a second. Would anyone else like to discuss committee assignments? Daisha seconds, okay.
So we move that to.
To add it after
unfinished.
tennis court contract and before E-rate category,
Okay.
don't you think? Because, does that make sense? Okay. And here comes the buttons. Go ahead.
So now we move to,
Okay, so that passes. So I'm going to add,
one moment. What is you ask for vote?
One person didn't vote.
Yeah, what is,
oh, I'm sorry.
what is,
We're voting on whether or not to include that
oh, okay.
on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah. So, committee discussion. Okay. Aside from that, now that that's been added, are we satisfied with the agenda? Are you satisfied, Lawrence, with the agenda?
No, I think now we can, basically, I think what we should do is call the motion for this agenda, and then you have second.
Right,
And then
that's
I
what I'm
submit-
asking, if you have any other additions or
No,
subtractions.
I don't have any addition. But
Okay.
what I'm saying
I know, I got
is
you.
just,
Yeah. So now to approve the agenda as amended, right?
no, the point, what I'm saying is now we talk about the agenda, right? So when you call motion, then somebody have motion and a second, and then I submit another
So you want-
subsidiary motion, and then we just vote for the subsidiary motion. And then after that, when we back to the main motion, basically the agenda.
I thought that's what she was doing.
Right,
That's what she was doing.
You called the motion for the agenda?
for the agenda as amended.
No, when we talk about the motions, we need when we talk about the agenda, we need a motion, right?
We just did, right, we need a motion. David, would you?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Would anyone like to second that?
Yeah, that's right. The first time, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Would anyone like to second that? Thank you, George. Okay, I gotta stop this one, and then all those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please vote. Okay, one more. All right, I'm gonna see if that makes me a little more efficient. Great. Next item we need to talk about is item number 2. Lawrence, since you pulled that, what would you like to change in the organizational meeting minutes? Is that the one that we have 2 different copies in the, yes. Okay, so we need to choose which copy of the organizational minutes we're going to vote on. Is that what you were concerned with?
I think you need to call motion. So right now we are going to vote on these things, right?
Right.
So maybe.
Well, first, I'm trying to
This is
figure
your
out,
item. So you tell us
yeah.
what it is that you're looking for us to do about these minutes.
So these are the things on the table. We have nothing on the table right now. So.
Well, I'm moving to the next item, which is item number 2,
Yes.
which is what you pulled. So I'm asking you, are you wanting to choose between the 2 different copies of the organizational minutes in the board packet? Is that why you pulled it?
Before we discuss this, we have some people have motion. And then
Sure, have a motion,
Yeah,
please.
then we can discuss.
Be my guest.
Yeah, I can have a motion.
Great, what is it?
A motion for what?
But discuss this question. This
Please, we don't need to vote on whether or not we're discussing it. You need to tell me why you pulled it. What are we doing with it?
Yeah, now we have nothing on the table, so now we have put this.
I put number 2 on the table because we have to talk about something. So I'm looking at item number 2,
Yes.
which you pulled.
Yes,
Can you tell me why?
I think before we talk about this, we have some people motion that in second, and then we can discuss, and then we vote, right?
Yeah.
Can I please? This is, in all the worlds of things that we could argue about and have priorities, little twigs with fire at the tip of them, when we have dumpster fires of what's happening with our funding in the parking lot, don't seem particularly effective. So I don't care what we do Robert's rules wise, but if we could just move on and answer the question of the minutes
Thank
that
you.
Lawrence has.
Lawrence,
Yes, I would like to prefer go through the rubber rules, so just
Great,
follow the
please,
step by
be my
step.
guest.
Yeah, I motion to talk about this item number 2.
Just, okay, I need to, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Do we also need to make a motion to allow you to talk about it, or would you like to just go
No,
ahead and
no,
start?
that's, we have a motion, somebody have a motion, and the second.
like
and
to
discuss,
vote?
And then we vote.
Okay, so let's go. We need to put that somewhere. So we'll put that after the consent agenda. So here, 02, org minutes. So we're going to talk about the next item, which is number 7, which Daisha pulled. And then we'll come back and talk about that after we get the consent agenda finished. No? We have to vote on whether or not we're going to, wait, what?
We passed the consent agenda already.
We already done that.
And then those 2 items
Okay.
automatically,
You're
because
right.
they've been pulled, they automatically come out in the order that
Afterwards.
they're listed. So we've approved the consent agenda.
Right.
Then we address number 1. Now it's time to address number 2. So that is what we're discussing. We don't need a separate motion to pull it out because we have to talk about it.
Right.
So we need to address what are the concerns with the meetings of the organizational minutes.
Okay, what are the concerns?
No, I think that's, we should.
I think I had it right the first time. Lawrence, what is the deal with the minutes, please?
No, I mean, I'm just trying to clarify the rubber rule.
We can do that
I
separately,
mean-
please.
Amy, let me just take.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
please.
So the consent agenda,
Yeah, we already passed that.
yes, but we pulled 3 items out.
Yes,
Those 3 items are now in order for us to discuss, one right after the other.
right.
And we've discussed 1, and that was approved. Now we have to discuss number 2, which is what you pulled out.
Yes.
So the floor is now open to discuss what the issues with number 2, with that are.
fine.
So since you were the one that brought that up.
That's fine.
It would be great, let's just start with what.
Okay, that's okay.
Also,
Yeah.
by the way, did we actually approve the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yeah, we
we did.
we already proved it.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah, so as I, regarding these meeting minutes, as I sent email to the whole school board, and there's 2 votes, I think there's some no voting record. Basically, that's not what happened in last meeting. So I would recommend to remove those 2 records. One is for president election, another one is for secretary's elections. And so I think that's not happening in the last meeting. Another thing is looks like the election is kind of 2 motions. I think that's 1 motion with 2 candidates. So I think that should be updated. That's all.
Okay. Sorry, I was looking at our vote options. If everyone would look at the board packet, there are 2 versions of item number 2. I've put a note on each one over on the right-hand side. Can you all see those as well, or are those just for me? I don't think you can. Okay. So.
They're in box, they should.
Okay, that's weird. You can? Okay, great. So we've got the version with affirmative votes only, and then we've got the version with includes negative votes. So what we're going to do is we are going to vote yes if we want just the one with affirmative votes only. And we're going to vote no if we want to include the negative votes. Is that acceptable? Everybody cool with that, Lawrence?
No, the thing is this, I think for me, the record regarding the president election, I think I'm okay with that. But for the secretary elections, I don't cast any vote for any peoples. So there's still some no record on that. I can only
So
speak
the
for myself.
secretary election, you abstained?
No, it's marked as no, so I didn't vote no for any of our colleagues.
Okay, right, I understand what you're saying. There's one version of the minutes where the no votes are recorded, and you disagree with that one. You want it to be the version of the minutes that only includes the yes votes, because we didn't vote no, is that correct?
Yes, that's one thing. Yeah, that's one thing.
Okay, so Rachel?
Minutes are a neutral recording of actions taken by a school board. So in the minutes, it is completely appropriate to just list the votes for something. We do not necessarily need to record the other votes. Actually what happened is that X person was elected by a majority vote of the board. So I would support the recommendation to only include the affirmatives.
Okay. Daisha?
Just to clarify, the draft that Lawrence proposed, that's the revised one, the secretary still includes the no votes. It has not been updated, is what Lawrence is trying
Yeah,
to
so
share.
basically, I don't support both of the versions at this
know.
point in time. So probably.
So if you look at the one where on the right-hand side, I've said affirmative votes only, that one says yes, Austin, Lyle, Purpur, and Witt under board president. Yes, Mumford, Wang, Yin, right? Those are affirmative actions of the board.
That's right.
So the affirmative votes only, I think, is the one you want.
That's right.
Right. The other version is completely separate. It's the other item 2. And on the right-hand side, I've put a note, includes negative votes. And I think that's the one you disagree with, correct?
Yes.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to put up this again. If you want only the affirmative votes, hit the yet what?
The one you marked as affirmative only
Yeah.
document, that's one for the president election, that's right. But for the secretary election, there are some votes. You can see if you go down a little bit, you see there's some no vote. See that? For the secretary,
What item number?
the secretary.
Okay, so assuming that we pull off all the no votes from the affirmative votes only one, would that be okay? We'll amend it. Here, I'll do it right now. I think I can just strike.
Yeah, that's will be better. But another thing is what I'm concerning is this. There's only one motion, basically 2 candidates. So now it looks like if you look like there's 2 motion. You see what I mean?
Yeah, David.
I would like to make a motion for us to approve the version that does not have the no votes under president, but also remove the no votes under board secretary, so it just lists the yes votes.
I second that.
Okay. So we're on, for Mrs. Julian, organizational minutes 1/3/25 draft parentheses 2. And the motion is to remove the no votes under secretary. And that was moved by David and seconded by Rachel. And
The motion is to approve those minutes
approve those
with those
minutes with those
modifications.
modifications. Right. Okay, let's vote on that, please.
There needs to be discussion.
There needs to be discussion. Does anyone have anything to say?
Yeah, I would say I prefer the document only 1 motion for each elections. Right now, it looks like 2 motion, so that's not what happened. So probably I won't support this this modified meeting minutes. Thank you.
I would like to call it a motion to table this. I think we do not have an accurate document in front of us and saying, let's change this or that. What should happen with minutes is the draft is proposed. If a board member disagrees, that is shared, and then that draft needs to match what the board member wants. The draft that Lawrence proposed is not what that was shared, does not match what he proposes. So I motion to table this, have his draft match what he thinks it should be, so that next month we can look at it and decide if we support it, instead of all this verbal, this part, which makes it very confusing. So I motion to table the organizational minutes until March and allow Lawrence to have his revision match with what he's trying to change.
Okay, does there a second to table this?
Yeah, I can second.
Okay, so now we need to vote. Shoot, oh my goodness. Stop. Okay,
There was already a motion on the floor to approve these minutes.
so the table does not supersede that.
There would need to be an amendment. Are you motioning to amend that motion to table? Then
I'd like to call the question, please.
Which question? There are so many.
We need to vote on the minutes. That's the question I'm calling.
Okay, so vote on the minute.
I'd like to vote on the minutes as presented.
That means we just vote, right?
Yep.
Cool.
as presented or
With
my
the-
With the
motion?
modification.
With the modification that David has given.
Okay, those minutes pass. Thank you for your assistance with keeping all of that straight. I would like to share that I recently saw a video about a CIA document, and it was how to take down an organization. And one of the items on the suggestions for how to take out an organization was to fight over petty things like minutes. So in the spirit of that, let's move on to number 7 is down there. Okay, so let's move on to the tennis court contract, please, which is number 11.
Indiana Online
You got to do
Academy.
number 7.
I thought
It just got moved to the bottom.
it just got moved to the bottom. Mother of God. All right, 07. We're moving on to 07. The Indiana Online Academy. Who pulled that? Daisha. Okay. I think we're at the part of discussion now. Is that correct? Great. Daisha, since you pulled it, you may go.
All right, so I had some questions on what the school district pays versus what parents pay for online, summer school online. So first, to backtrack with some of the comments that were said before, I wanted to share that our counseling team at the high school has put together a Google Doc that all families have access to. In that Google Doc, it lists what the summer school options are. It shares each of the options from Achieve, where students can take 2 each, and that's free for the students and free for the school, if I understand correctly. That's priority number 1. Then the second one, which we're talking about approving this contract, but I want to understand it all, is Indiana Online. That costs the students nothing.
There are a few classes that,
Okay.
that if they want to take them, it is a cost, but the majority of them we pay for.
Okay, do you, and this,
And I don't have that list right now.
that's fine. Okay, so some of them
It's a very
cost.
small number, right?
Okay. And then the school district has to pay for any other class a student takes through Indiana Online, the school district pays. And that's what this contract is doing. Now, on the document that they share, they list the other possible options. For example, Ivy Tech, IU High School, BYU Independent Study. There's a variety of places. Those ones don't cost the school district anything, only the parents, if they choose to do that one. Am I understanding? So that's the cost-wise. Okay, let me see. I wrote some numbers. So then trying to understand, and this may be for Mr. Rogers, this may be for Dr. Greiner, and I did not have a chance to ask ahead of time, so Mr. Rogers totally can say, I don't know. If there's a lot going on tonight, I know there's a diploma meeting, and there's just a lot.
Mr. Rogers, do you want to come forward to the microphone?
Absolutely, I'd love to.
So first, just me personally, I have heard a lot of appreciation for what summer school is looking like for our students in flexibility. Just this afternoon, a couple were talking about how in the past, they could only take certain classes if they failed that class, and now that's been removed, which just gives them some options. They know that's not the best way to get it, but so very much appreciation for the changes. The question is why science and world languages aren't being listed as potential classes for the students to take. in the document where it lists for students to take, if that makes sense.
So my understanding
Yeah.
is that the labs are very difficult to replicate.
Okay.
And then the world language piece, it's very difficult to do the listening and the speaking. And so that's kind of where that line was drawn at this point in time. So I would say personally, I feel like we've moved to be more liberal, more open, and maybe that's the next threshold that we may need to look at. But right now, that's where we're at.
So right now, science classes can't be taken over the summer, if I understand correctly.
I think it's more, I could be.
I know, and I'm sorry. This was not fair to you.
Where we are providing that as a menu.
Oh, not
Does that
listing
make
as
sense?
simple
Like, I think, right,
or
I'd have to
encouraging
go
it, I
check
guess?
with my counselors
Yeah,
on
no, I
this.
apologize.
Yeah, I think that when you pay for something, that's kind of more whatever you take, if you come back with that credit, we accept.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So the free version,
Is what
that's where
they're-
we've said, not this.
Okay.
That's my understanding. And if I'm wrong, I will come back to the microphone and say I'm wrong.
Could I suggest that this conversation be had in the manner we described in our previous discussion this evening? And that you
Asked a week
send.
ago, that would have been dreamy, and I apologize
Well-
to Mr.
No, you're
Rogers
good.
that I just didn't.
We're
There's a lot of information.
unlikely to vote no and withhold the option of summer school from all of our students.
Right.
So maybe if we're information seeking about how summer school works and who pays for what, in deference to the fact that Mr. Rogers doesn't have his computer right here and didn't have any warning about these questions, you could send those to all of us, and then Dr. Greiner could carry them to him, and he would have an opportunity to respond with all of the information before him.
And I think that's a fair circumstance if it was even 2 months ago. I think my problem is right now, students are in the middle of registering for classes. So these questions are general questions, not just questions that as a school board we need to hear. The public needs to hear is why.
And
I'd like to
their
ask it here.
counselors, don't their counselors give
So these are
input on
general
this?
questions and not questions that the counselors need to get from every student. So I'd just like to ask a few questions so that that has come up, so.
Rachel, did you have something to add there?
Oh,
We're very much off topic of the vote again. The vote on the table is about the Indiana Online Academy, and I'd like to call that vote, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Do I
Rogers.
okay.
Expect an email. All right, we are voting to, do we have a motion and a second on Online Academy, or do we need one if we're calling the vote? Calling the vote's kind of new. We need one, so I need a motion regarding the Online Academy, George.
I will move to call that vote, but also just want to get a quick clarification. In the documentation we received, Dr. Greiner, it does say that the school district will likely be reimbursed for most of that cost?
No, not most of it.
Oh, not most of it, okay.
No. We will, thank you. Sorry, it's the first time I'm speaking tonight. Forgot about the button. We go through the summer school reimbursement process. We've been getting about 30 to 40% back from the state for summer school reimbursement.
Okay, so we've got a motion from Rachel and a second from George on approving the Indiana Online Academy. So go ahead and vote. Okay, thank you. Yes, you-
I agree with the option, but I'm curious about the answer regarding the reimbursement though. And why don't the state reimburse us for the summer school?
Because they're
I mean, what,
The percent depends on how many school districts have submitted requests for reimbursement of summer school. And the more that submit, the less money each district receives, because there's only so much money funded by the state for summer school.
they only set aside a certain appropriation. They can't go over that appropriation. So all of us turn in our expenses, and if it goes over that appropriation, they then cut down everybody as a percent so that it fits within that appropriation. So if they say that that appropriation's only 40% of the expenditures turned in, then everybody only gets 40% of what they turned in.
But this is for the summer school option that's outside the free one. So there's two options, one's free and then one.
Achieve is free. That's through MSD Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they do the summer school reimbursement themselves, MSD Wayne. So students enroll through that. They do the summer school reimbursement. And then Indiana Online is what I turn in for summer school reimbursement, our total bill for classes that we don't offer any classes that the state wouldn't reimburse for. But like I said, we've only been getting about probably 30 to 40% reimbursement for those.
I just asked that just so we can get it on camera for the folks watching at home.
Rachel, did you have something? Sorry, I'm trying to go in order. No?
I was just going to ask, Michelle, while we're on this topic of Indiana Online Academy, is there a sense that they will prioritize classes that are necessary for graduation?
They will be prioritizing the elementary literacy summer school this year. So if everybody's offering literacy summer school, the priority will go towards reimbursing that first. There has not been a bill to increase summer school funding at all or have any separate funding for the summer school literacy at this point. So I'm not even going to wager a guess what that will look like at this point.
May I just clarify? So did you say that if a student register class with the Virtual Achieve, and it's free for us as well? Because the Virtual Achieve will go for, apply for reimbursement.
Yes, Achieve is through MSD Wayne, and students enroll through that separately. That's not through us. And MSD Wayne treats them like a student during the summer and turns them in for summer school reimbursement.
Okay, so,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
but the other one though, we will pay like a 70% the cost, even though it's free for students, right?
We will pay a portion of the cost, and we
Yeah.
will receive a partial reimbursement from the state. We pay nothing for MSD Wayne, but they are also seeking reimbursement out of that same set of funds from the state. So we are all in competition for the same funds from the state.
So quality-wise, do we have any comparison about which one is better quality-wise? So to
That would
give
be-
students some suggestions?
That would be a student question.
Okay.
Depending on preference.
Yeah.
Of their own style of need or learning.
Okay, I'm also looking at the document that Desha mentioned. And so it mentioned several other online options. So if we are not partnering, if we don't partner with those, like IU high school online, and that means if a student take classes with them, if the counselor say we recognize this credit, and that credit will go into student transcripts. However, students need to pay themselves, right? So that's what the partner means. When we partner with the online school, students don't need to pay, but we pay for it. But for those that we don't partner with, for example, IU High online, then students need to pay for it, even though we may recognize their credit.
If it's an accredited school in the state of Indiana, we would certainly recognize the credit.
Okay, I'm going
Okay, yeah, just to clarify, because it's a kind of common question I heard. Okay, thank you.
If you're getting that question, I understand it may be a question you have as well, but if you're getting that question, the best thing to do is refer whoever's asking it back to Mr. Rogers and his staff, because when we talk about these things and say, oh, we want the public to have the information. If I were a parent not sitting at this desk, I think it would be really confusing to try to parse out what options are available to my kids based on this conversation and how much those would cost and so on. So I really feel like it's better for those students and better for those parents if we refer them to the place that has all of that information for that particular student, because my kid may not be eligible to take the MSD of wherever classes or the Ivy Tech classes. And that's something we can't know here. And so rather than confusing the issue for parents and students, can we leave that to the experts who are the counseling staff more?
Yes, I understand your concern, but actually being a board member for more than 4 years, and I passed this like every year. And until the parents asked me the question, I didn't fully understand what the partner means, because there are other ones. Why do we choose to partner with these two but not other ones? What's the implication for if we partner with them or if we don't partner with them? You know, I feel the answer to this question helped me to understand what I'm voting for. You see what I mean?
and
It's
I
not only,
understand.
So now I feel understand better, for example, the financial implication for our district for students, and I feel I learn better.
Okay. I would encourage any parents or students who may be watching to not take this as gospel and to go back to the school for the good information. Let's just leave it there. Okay, we are going to talk about the tennis court contract, and that is Mrs. Kronk.
Remembered. Okay, I have a lot to say, and I'm sorry if I start coughing in the middle of it. I apologize. As you know, we've been working with Helix Construction the past several months to design a tennis court after listening to community feedback.
Did we vote on that contract?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
He snapped at me. He scared me.
It's confusing. It's hard when
Okay.
everything's all over.
So
Thank
yes,
you.
we've been working with Helix Construction the past several months to design a tennis court after listening to community feedback. We would now like to present the contract with Helix this evening for the replacement of our current tennis courts with post-tension courts, a product that's been proven to last longer than a regular asphalt court, which is what we have now. This project was included on our 10-year capital improvement study, the 2025 budget capital projects plan, and on the list of planned projects for the 2024 GO bond. If you remember, we were able to use the contract for Helix through the Sourcewell Cooperative, a purchasing cooperative that has performed the state-required RFP process for athletic surfaces and lighting, the same contract mechanism we use for the athletic complex track. Helix has provided wonderful customer service over the past couple of months, working with us to design the tennis courts that meet our needs, and have completed a thorough investigation of the property to ensure that courts will be structurally sound through a geotechnical survey. Helix has been completing a tennis court project at Salem High School this past year, and the superintendent for Salem has given Helix rave reviews for their customer service and the work they have completed. The final contract for the replacement of 10 tennis courts with the addition of 4 pickleball courts amounts to $1,698,900, which is in line with the early estimate from this past fall and is quite competitive compared to what other school corporations have paid or have received quotes for in the past couple of years. Due to the specialized drilling that will have to take place for the lighting contract will need to be brought at a later time. Helix is working with local vendors to secure the best prices possible for the lighting installation. I recommend using the Helix contract through the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative for the tennis court replacement at WLS. The project will be paid for using funds from the city for our recent agreement and the 2024 GO bond.
Thank you. 2 things before we start talking. The pickleball was a big issue, and those courts are going to be completely separate from the tennis courts. The tennis courts will remain where they are, and the pickleball will be added
Off to the side.
So we don't have to worry about pickles flying at tennis players or vice versa. The other thing I want to make sure everyone understands is what the co-op is. And you might remember that Mrs. Fitzsimmons talked about the purchasing co-op with the food service and how everything is already vetted and approved by the state. So we don't have to go through that 3 quote process.
Correct, because it is one of the options we have under state code for purchasing during a public works project.
Somebody else already did the 3 quotes and said, do this. So we are not being negligent in any way by not receiving more quotes on that because someone already has. So with that in mind, I would love to entertain a tennis motion, George.
Question before we do that. Just looking at the map, the plan, it takes away a tiny bit from that asphalt playground in the back, right?
Yes.
The folks at Willis okay with that?
Sarah and I have been talking, and she's good. She's excited about the prospect of the students being able to use the pickleball courts. Yeah.
All right.
Little bitty pickles.
Then I will move to have a vote.
Okay, George moves to approve the tennis court and Lawrence seconds. Any discussion?
Yes.
Rachel, please.
I noticed, I know that we're lower than an original 2 million estimate, but I also noticed that this is quite a large area and it'll be quite a tall fence. So I think we're probably, then fencing is not included in this.
Fencing
bid,
is
correct?
included.
It is? The quote says that it's an exclusion.
They told me it was included, so.
Yeah, it is listed as item number 11 on the exclusions. So if fence work is not included and lights are not included,
Because in the drawing, the fence is included. Because the drawing, the fence is included, and the gates are also included in the drawing.
yeah, it's just, it is specifically listed as an exclusion. So that gives me pause. I think that probably puts us much closer to that $2 million number by the time you add lighting and fencing, and that's
I
a
can
big
email
fence.
her and check, but I am pretty positive the fencing is included, or else they would not have drawn it on the drawing.
On the other document, the scope of work, which is halfway down page 2, it says provide and install new 10-foot-high black vinyl fencing. Yeah.
I don't understand why it's
yeah, I
also
don't
an
either.
I think it's probably their standard contract, and I'll have them send a new one with that taken off of there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, George.
We may have been unique in the fact that we had that built in, maybe.
Question for both you and for Lawrence. Can we condition this vote on making sure that we get that updated document so we can approve it if the updated document doesn't
Yeah.
come?
Yeah, I
I'm
have no problem
satisfied with that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she responds very quickly, so, yeah.
Anything else, David?
Do we have an idea of about how much the lights are going to cost? Because lights, I assume-
Early estimates were around 500. Lighting, LED lighting is very, very expensive, and we are putting more lights in, and they are taller, so that I've learned a lot about lighting through this process. This is amazing. So the distribution of the lighting is so that every surface of the court has the same amount of light across the whole thing. And so it is very expensive. And also for the fact our geotechnical survey found water at 6 feet, so they have to drill in a different manner, which is why it's taking so long to get that quote done. They have to work with special drillers to make sure, one, they can do that type of drilling, and two, they are trying to get the best price possible so that that quote is as low as it can possibly be. So that's my estimate at this time.
Okay.
Athletic lighting's expensive. I never knew. The 65 projects I did at my previous school, I never did athletic lighting, so this is new for me.
Stacia, you had something?
I had two questions. The first one is the timeline. When do they think they'll be able to do?
We are expected to start either the last week of May or the first week of June with demolition. And then they will pour the concrete, and the concrete is supposed to cure for 21 days before they can finish up with everything else. So they gave us a timeline of about 3 months. So June through the end of August. And so we do know that some other plans might have to be made for the month of August, and Mr. Strode and the coach are aware of that. That was a conservative estimate, but it all depends upon weather. So, they can't pour concrete unless the weather is good, and then that 21 days it has to cure, so.
Helpful. And then help me understand, so the co-op makes sense to me on something like food, where we're buying the same thing over and over every year. What is the mindset of why we wouldn't want to get several quotes on a tennis court and just go with this?
Well, honestly, I'm going to say that is becoming more prevalent for athletic surfaces, especially across the state of Indiana with a lot of my colleagues. They are going through the co-ops because, like with turf especially, it goes through a lot of co-ops. I think because it's such a specialized thing, these companies specialize in these things. We've been working with them for 4 months. As you know, we went back and forth quite a few times. And so they did a lot of different drawings for us, a lot of different design work, and we've been working with them from day one. And for the fact that I am quite comfortable with the quote that they gave us for post-tension. I can tell you another school corporation that has less courts had a quote for $3 million for something very similar, and we're getting $1.698 million. So I am quite comfortable with this. I've spoken to a lot of other school corporations that have been extremely happy with their work, and they are definitely making a name for themselves in the Midwest.
Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just I really appreciate our school administrations for the work with these co-op things, find a pretty good bid, and also this very example of governments, local governments work together and also listen to the community members' concerns. We put together, we collaborated together, and we end up with the best solution. So that's a great example for collaborations. One question I have is, did we share this diagram with the city, the redevelopment committees, our cities?
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Have we shared it with the redevelopment commission?
They are okay with?
We shared early on.
Okay.
They have seen the latest drawing with them on the side, yes. I believe we did that, yeah.
They've seen multiple versions, and basically they said as long as the
They don't care.
pickleball courts are there, it's to our discretion. If they're good with us, so they're
So
very comfortable.
basically, they know this diagram, the final, the construction.
I don't know that they know that we put them to the side. They know that there's going to be 4 courts, and that's
Okay.
what they said they cared about.
As long as that's, so they should be okay.
Yes, they'll be,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, another thing is, my understanding with this kind of contract, we need to get our legal counsel double check, make sure there's nothing wrong. Is that right?
I mean, it's a standard contractor contract. I will have them take out that line that we talked about with the fencing exclusion, but I can run it by Jesse, yes.
Yeah, probably that's my understanding. Just make sure we are kind of covered.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Yeah, other than that, I have no problem.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate.
Just know that there's a small cost for that.
What?
Just know that there's a small cost for doing that.
They will charge us.
That should be part of the retainer.
I think.
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah. Yeah, this is the proposal that I'm having you approve. The actual contract will come on a standard AIA construction document.
Okay.
That is a standard document that has standard lines. There's really no, every construction project has that. But yes, I can have her take a look at that.
So basically, this is not official contract.
This is
You
the
kind of
proposal approval. Yes.
But we will end up with kind of some.
Yeah, you're approving me to enter into that contract.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you.
UA was first and then David.
Oh, just to express my gratitude to I don't know who made the final decision regarding where the pickleball court will be, but
There's a lot of people working together.
yeah, it's so great that we listen to the community and especially the tennis community regarding where the issues with having it in the court. I think now is a great solution, and the elementary school kids can play pickleball there as well, and it's a great and just a clarification. And now the pickleball court and the tennis court are separate with a fence in between, right? So okay, that I think that will be very helpful. And also thank you for explaining how the co-op works, why we don't have 3 quotes. And I think, that's also very helpful. Another question I have is for the warranty maintenance and how, I read the part.
They have a standard 1-year warranty, which is pretty standard when it comes to construction work on the work that they have done. So if anything comes about within the year after it is completely complete and turned over to us, it has that warranty if something happens.
Okay.
And then the lighting would have a separate one because it's a separate contract.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
David?
I just wanted to say thank you, Michelle. I think that these plans are great, and I know it was a lot of work to get this done. So thank you to you and everybody else who did that. Do we have a motion on the floor already?
We do, to
Okay.
approve it with the
And
fence
did we have a
exclusion
second?
removed. Yes.
Okay, so then I call it to vote.
Okay, let's vote. Okay. 7. Okay. Now,
Thank you. I do want to give a big thanks to Mr. Larry Daly, who has been working very, very hard with Helix, with all the different contractors that have been coming out, been looking at everything. He's put a lot of work into this, so I'm really grateful for him. So.
thanks.
Well, with that, I'd also like to thank Mr. Strode because he truly has been working alongside understanding that relationship. And when we originally met with the city, he was instrumental along the way of talking with coaches and with all the different stakeholders. It truly was a team approach, as Dr. Yen described. And I think we've gotten to a point where our community benefits in a situation where our students have courts that really serve them well in a
That was a
competitive
good
sport.
pun.
That,
Serves, I'm sorry, go
oh, I
ahead.
guess it's. I think I've lost my thought.
I'm so sorry.
Truly, a lot of people came together and did a lot of listening and a lot of working together to get to a result where first our students have great courts, which is what we're here for, but then everybody wins, where our entire community benefits from something that we've heard loud and clear is important to our community. So.
Thank you. Sorry, I will not laugh at your puns in the middle of sentences anymore. The next item is Lawrence's discussion about committees. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to share some comments regarding that committee assignment. So I think that should be, we have some open discussions on our school board before we make assignment so that we have each member's preference, and also we can get better understand what is the each committee's major business, what is the expectations for assigning that committee as a representative so that the person can represent the whole board. And also we want to make sure that person, each board member not be misrepresented. So I think which in that discussion, after that discussion, we can have this committee assignment. And I think this kind of inclusive decision-making process and also some open discussions will help us to build a unified school board. And I strongly believe a unified school board will help us serve our school and student in a better way. That's all. Thank you.
Cool. If you will recall, in either November or December, I believe it was December, I asked everyone to email me their preferences and opinions with regard to committees. And I said that if I continued to be the president, I would take those into consideration. And if I was not the president, that I would pass that information along to whoever became the president. And I did receive feedback from that email. So I just don't want people to think that I arbitrarily made these decisions in a vacuum. It was very carefully considered. It was discussed with Dr. Greiner. It was discussed with the Parks Department. It was discussed with the city. It was discussed with the president of the foundation, the West Lafayette Foundation. And so, yeah, I didn't just throw darts at that. Yes, Rachel.
By policy, it is the responsibility of the board president to assign committees. And with a 5-week inquiry notice before that assignment, Amy, I appreciate your following the board policies for determining committee assignments.
Thanks. Lawrence, go ahead.
Yes, I thank you for Rachel's comments, but I think that policy regarding our school boards committee is not really outside committee, our school. Say, for example, redevelopment committee, say park or recreation committee, that's not within scope of our school corporation. So I think that policy is not authorized any for board members, actual authorities to do these things. Thank you.
Actually, Lawrence, I had a meeting with Mayor Easter. I was going to talk about this on board reports, but I can talk about it now. And she invited me to be on the RDC, and I did say, you know, I'm sure any board member would be pleased to be invited, but she said that she wanted it to be myself. So I was very pleased to accept that. And I'm meeting with Mr. Oates on Wednesday to get orientated, and our first meeting is next week. So, Yue, did you have something?
Thank you, Amy, for soliciting feedback from the board members regarding the committee assignment. And I just, I made this suggestion last time, but I like to repeat it, is I think in general, we should rotate the assignment so that way everybody can learn different things every year. And at least before I served on the like glass and park and the typical new education foundation and the community. I served multiple. Every time I met different people, I learned different things. I feel it's very helpful. But like this time, Desha, I think Desha so far served on the education foundations like 3 years in a row or something. So yeah, I feel, you know, the learning gain will decline over time. So it'll be helpful for people to rotate. It's just a general rule. If people don't say anything, maybe rotation can be a way to let everybody learn everything.
I do understand that, and also the counterpoint to it would be that continuity is important to these organizations. Having you on glass again, especially as they're going through a huge transition, I felt was important because you don't have to ramp up. You already know what's going on. Keeping Daisha on the Public Schools Foundation, as you mentioned, when I served on that committee, people expressed surprise that I had rotated in and my predecessor had rotated out already, was the word that was used. So I think continuity is important to the groups we serve, and most of these meetings are public. So if you would like to go and learn, you know, about the Redevelopment Commission, for example, I think it's Wednesday at 8 o'clock, 8:30, I can let you know. But they are public meetings, so that's, you know, it's not closed to you. David, did you have something? No? Okay. Anybody else? Lawrence, does that satisfy your discussion?
Yeah, that's all.
Great. Okay, let's move on to new business, and we're back to Michelle with the E-rate category 2.
Yep. The IT department indicated during the 2025 budget planning that continued upgrades to our network infrastructure are needed as equipment's nearing its end of life. We started this project last year, if you recall, and this is a continuation of the project now that we have more Category 2 funding available. Mr. Hamilton worked with our E-rate consultant through AdTech through the proper process for obtaining federal E-rate Category 2 funding to supplement the cost of this upgrade. We are eligible for a 50% E-rate discount. He went through the necessary processes required for an E-rate project, including publication of notices of requests for proposals, a question and answer period, and a final assessment of the proposals. WinTech submitted the winning proposal for network infrastructure replacement at a total cost of $180,660, of which we roughly will be responsible for half after that E-rate discount. Other proposals were less expensive, but they are not compatible with our current existing equipment and thus would cost more to move to them. This upgrade will be paid from educational and operations funds. Once we get the invoices, please approve the Category 2 E-rate equipment purchase as submitted. I believe the work will happen over the summer, correct, Mr. Hamilton? Yes.
Okay. I need a motion.
Did you say AdTech or WinTech?
WinTech.
We're working with AdTech, who is our E-rate consultant, and then WinTech is getting the contract.
Gotcha.
That's not confusing at all.
Never noticed that before last year when I did it.
Yes, moved by Rachel, seconded by David. Any discussion? Oh, super. I will open the poll. There we go. Okay, that was easy. The next item is stopping the vote. And Dr. Greiner.
Thank you, Mrs. Austin. We continue to progress with regard to steps to developing our strategic plan. On Friday, February 21st, Mr. Jones with Skybound will facilitate a workshop with district administrators and principals to document actions aligned to the Indiana Graduates Prepared to Succeed dashboard. This is important because the Indiana Department of Education will design the new accountability framework according to these measures. And so our work with Mr. Jones will be very important as we work with our principals to develop those accountability measures. On Monday, March 10th, Mr. Jones will share themes and ideas with the board, which were taken from surveys and the various focus groups. Then on Thursday, April 10th, Mr. Jones is going to facilitate workshops with school representatives as well as community representatives to get input from various stakeholders in the development of goals and strategies. And then finally, on Monday, March 9th, Mr. Jones will present a completed strategic plan to the board. As shared in Friday notes, we are also mapping out the steps to take and developing a recommendation to the board by December 2025 with regard to Happy Hollow and the future use of the building and the property. We plan to survey the staff and the community to gain a greater understanding of community ideas for how the building can be used and/or land in addition to what we know are current needs already. And then we would like Mr. Jones to facilitate focus groups similarly to what was done with the overall strategic plan currently. We'd like focus groups to gather input and volumes to the satisfaction rate too, and the word is spreading and to the need. So I just want to thank you three. I like to give them a round of applause. They're great people. Finally, I want to echo and end with what Harris Stute talked about early on when he was speaking to the board. Right now, we are following developments of bills related to property tax reform, SB 1, as Harris Stute suggested. The impact of the governor's current recommendation if you'd please report out on the accounts payable and the fund reports at this time.
Yeah. Claims for the period of January 9th to February 4th, 2025 total $3,087,794, including regular corporation expenses and the Wabash Valley Education Center expenses. Of this amount, $2,376,000 $2,376.71 were paid towards wages, salaries, and benefits. I provided the final fund report for December 2024 in your board packets. Total cash on hand in all funds was $31,563,264.96. The education fund had a cash balance of $7,596,171.07. Preliminary fund report for January has been included in your board packets, but we've not yet finished reconciling the month. Also, please see that I've shared the cash flow statement for 2024 that is also on the corporation website in your board packet. I've added the percent spent of approved budget for each fund in the last column.
Very much. It probably would have been smoother if I'd turned on my microphone and brought this up during the committee discussion, but since I didn't, there's been interest expressed by David in serving on the policy committee, the temporary ad hoc policy committee. And I would like to go ahead and formally make that assignment. I think the logic we had with setting the board officers of having one oldster, one middle, and one new person will also serve well on that. And so thank you, David, for your willingness to serve. As far as my other board reports, as I said, Mayor Easter invited me to be on the Redevelopment Commission, and I'm orienting this week and will begin next week. I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity to serve our community. And as far as board teacher discussion goes, they have not yet met this.
We did not meet.
We did not meet in January, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Grino will let me know when the next one is, because I've lost track. And I'm extremely excited to be accompanying Mr. Jost again to Washington, D.C. in April. I've been chosen to be a chaperone with my second daughter, so I went last year, and we're going to do it again, and I can't wait to see the pretty trees. So it'll be a beautiful time to be there. And with that, I will go to George, the legislative.
So I and Dr. Greiner and Mrs. Kronk went to one of the local regular legislative luncheons and got to learn a couple of useful things. One, all of the local representatives from the House and the Senate who were present did not support the move to make school board elections partisan. So at least from the local perspective, they don't support that. Pardon me. There was also some talk in the room about SB 1 and the potential funding changes. And there was some talk in the room that even though it's SB 1, which would indicate a high priority, there is still a chance that it might not pass. Because the more people make their voices heard about the effects that it could cause, the more the representatives, the senators are listening, and there is a chance that it might get put to the side in committee. And if it doesn't, there is a chance that it might actually fail a floor vote. So it's not guaranteed, but like Erstut said, please keep in contact with your legislators to make your voices heard, and it might be put down.
Yeah, this time of year, we are all part of the legislative committee, and we need to do our part for public education. Next on the list is Daisha with public. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
George, has there been any conversation in legislative circles about the changes to Medicaid that will reduce funding for ABA therapy? And if that is, have you heard anything about that?
You know, I haven't heard anything specific about that. It never got mentioned at the session that we were at, and I haven't seen a whole lot of news on it from the news sources that I keep track of. But it's something I'll keep in mind to ask about the next time I get a chance.
I'm just concerned about the impact who students who need those services who may be joining us in April when that gets cut off. And so I think that's something I'd like some more information on if you happen to hear anything about it.
We'll definitely bring that up at the legislative luncheon, which is February 18th. Something like that. I'm getting my dates messed up, but we'll discuss that. Thank you for raising the issue.
Yes, it's a quick question for George.
Your microphone.
State House Day.
State House Day, yeah, sorry.
Yes, it's quick. So regarding the partisan for board elections, basically, nobody really support that.
No one here
yeah,
supports
but
it. So
in terms of the chance in the past,
that doesn't stand as good a chance of passing as people initially thought it did. There is always a chance that it could pass just simply because of the makeup of the legislature, because right now the Republicans have a supermajority. And it only takes just enough of them to pass it. However, everyone I spoke to who represents the local area was against it, and the one person who wasn't completely against it said that they were 98% against it.
okay, thank you.
Daisha's next on the list with the Public Schools Foundation.
So I attended the Public Schools Foundation with central office, and actually this time we met at the Greater Lafayette Career Academy and had lunch in their cafe.
Nice.
So it was super fun, and I'd recommend anyone go to have lunch there. The students did a great job, and it was fun to see them in action. The Public Schools Foundation teacher grant cycle for the spring is open until March 12th. Their cupcake bake-off and tasting party is February 13th from 5 to 6 p.m. at the GLCA, and it's free and all is invited. And it's super fun. It's phenomenal what the students come up with. Our school district has actually not chosen to participate this time, but you will get to see others in the community participate, so it's a great event. And then I did want to ask, I know I had asked last year, and I was hoping even after tonight that we could have a trainer hired to come in, because a large percentage of our time is dealing with the chaos of not following Robert's rules, procedures. It's random, it's selective, and there's just a lot of confusion. And I think it would be very helpful to have someone who could come train all 7 of us so that these meetings could run more efficiently and effectively. So I would like to make that request again, to look into that.
Take that under advisement. Did you have someone in mind?
Well, last year, the guy that came in, I thought was he seemed like he knew how school boards worked and had good advice. I wasn't clear why you decided not to pursue that one. So I don't-
ISBA guy?
No, you brought in, someone came and did a big group one. I don't remember. What is his name, Dr. Greiner?
Dr. Donnelly?
2 years ago.
Oh, was it 2 years ago?
Dr. Donlin, yes.
That one. Okay, I don't remember his name.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the suggestion. We will see what we can do with that. And again, as I stated earlier, I learned in my training, it's more of a guideline and not a law, but there you have it. Lawrence, you're next. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped David. David, what's going on at the parks?
Things are going well with Parks and Rec. Wellness Center is going well. They're getting bunch of new exercise equipment because there's a relative life to most of the machines, and this is 4 years or so in, so they'll be getting a lot of new machines there. Case and Family Park is still going as its progression as expected. There will be a grand opening, I believe it's May 22nd. If you haven't driven by, you should drive by. There are some really cool things that are going on or that are being put in there. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic park for our community. There were several hires that were made, but overall it was a relatively light meeting because it's cold and can't do too much outside. But the ice skating rink is going well. The freezing cold has been good for that. So that's what I have.
I hear later this week is also going to be good for ice. Lawrence.
Yeah, the next meeting for the community council will be April, so I don't have any much things to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel.
West Lafayette Schools Education Foundation meets this Thursday, but I do have an update from Wendy Ayler. The WLCSC scholarship applications closed last Monday with 66 seniors applying for scholarships. That number is on par with last year, there were 67. So recipients will be notified in April of the awards. Tickets are still available for Scarlet and Gray dinner and auction on Saturday, March the 1st. It is a Kentucky Derby theme this year. Link to the event site is available if you go to the WLSEF.org website. And also as a reminder about Founders Day, I mentioned it last month, but it's coming up on March 27th. And this is a new development. The foundation is partnering with the Student Council to raise money for the new RDP Gear Fund. That fund is available to help meet individual needs that arise during the school year for such things as school supplies, hygiene or personal products, winter coats, shoes for PE, etc. They're excited to be working with Student Council.
Everyone should come to the Scarlet and Gray because I have a ridiculous hat. So I'm super excited about that. Yui, tell me about glass.
The first meeting will be February the 18th and at 2 o'clock. And so it's open to the public. Everybody is welcome to join it. Regarding the Robert Rule training, I wonder whether we can also see whether any of our teachers can train us and we pay our teachers instead of somebody external.
That's an interesting idea. I bet Mr. Smith would, no, it's a terrible idea. Tell me why, Rachel.
Our teachers do not want to be put in the position of teaching the board how to do their meetings. I promise you, I have, no.
I have someone at ISBA in mind.
Sorry, Mr. Joe, speaking for you, but no, that's not something that we should ask them to do.
Fair enough. I have someone in mind at ISBA that has a great deal of experience. He's not with the organization. He's, I think, the Shelbyville president, and he did the training the other day that I did. So I'm going to check with him.
I know there's Purdue, there's a department, when they have meetings, they hire professionally Robert Rule expertise. They run the meeting. They just run the meeting.
I just don't want somebody to sit here and tell me all the different times I'm wrong. You know, it's stressful enough.
But I mean, maybe that's too much for us, but they do that.
Okay. And if we need it, will be Monday, March 10th. I'm going to go ahead and guess that we will because we only made it through one-ish of my 4 items. The next board meeting will be March 10th at 6 p.m. and there are interesting dates on the sheet. If that's all, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Rachel, seconded by Lawrence. All those in, I didn't do the thing. All those in favor?